Hi.
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 Welcome to Why Are We Like This? I'm Ashley, she, her, and today I have returned with two lovely folks to head to the cottage.
Yay!
Yay.
Woo! I have one of my favorite AO3 authors and a dear, dear friend.
Hi, I'm Andi, she, they.
And I also have local queer nonprofit leader and books newsletter writer.
I'm Zach Wilke, he, him.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining me for this trip to the cottage.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me too. I would never turn down an invitation to the cottage.
Zach, you and I were both on the season 1 overview discussion for Slayer Fest, and 10 minutes into it, I was like, I'm going to steal Zach and bring him with me.
I'm happy to be poached. I can't talk about this stuff enough, and I feel like we did vibe on that podcast. So I'm really excited to see what things might be like 2 months later, after Heated Rivalry broke containment.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of describing it, because that's I feel like after about episode 4, that's what really happened. It went from this group of us who knew it was coming and were watching it and everything to exploding to the entire across the world. It's just been shocking to watch.
Yeah, baby pet project of mine to watch, where I thought that I was going to have to learn how to illegally download things that turned into international phenomenon 6 weeks later. It was really something crazy, and I can't wait to talk about that and all of the positives and negatives that come along with it, and how it might have even refracted the way we look at this entire project.
Yeah. And you were a fan of the books before.
Yeah, I should say prior to the series coming out, I had read books 2 and 6, so I knew the Shane and Ilya story, and then afterwards I read book 1, and I have books 3 through 5 ready to go, and I plan to sprinkle them throughout the year. Nice. But I don't mind being spoiled on any of those today, of course. But I was aware I'm one of the early adopters of following Hudson and Connor online before the millions of folks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was highly anticipating the project coming out later, but so I was an early adopter from the very beginning. Very excited about it.
Okay, so before we dive in, there's one little thing that was mentioned in episode 5's recording, which I know isn't out, so you guys haven't heard any of it, but we were talking about the line when Ilya's at the airport and Marley brings him a coffee and is like, did you get any sleep last night? Joking around with him, and he says, you're a fucking beautician. And we were trying to suss out what that meant. And then my partner and I have been rewatching Letterkenny, and I noticed the Hockey Bros using the word beautician in the show. And so then I started thinking about it. Turns out it's a slang term used for hockey players who are not only really good on the ice, but are popular and well liked off the ice as well.
Oh.
So all of we were maybe it's because the women that leave his room look so good and relaxed after, or maybe it's because he didn't get any sleep at all, and now he looks phenomenal at the airport. We were speculating, and it turns out it's just a slang term.
They go in his room with one hairstyle and leave with another.
Yeah, exactly. Shall we dive in?
Let's
do
go. It.
All right. We open on cheering, and we hear the announcer saying the most valuable player is Scott Hunter. And I just made a note that was I wish that real hockey was this actually inclusive, because as he says later that coming out got more attention than him winning the cup. I feel like that would be so true in real life, and I fear that his coming out would overshadow his performance and prevent him from winning MVP.
Yeah, and it would also probably be, given what we've seen these last few weeks, probably with a lot of negativity. We see it in here as so positive, because for us it's super positive, and for all of the queer community it would be really positive to see, but for most of the fans, that would probably not be the case, and that's really unfortunate. That's what I was feeling watching this too when I rewatched it.
I did find it interesting that this was the first sort of overt acknowledgement of homophobia in the hockey world.
Yeah.
But, I think that they sort of danced around it for the first 5 episodes. I think that, with Shane sort of internal homophobia and his own journey, and thinking about like what he might lose because of it. That was all subtext to what was going on. But this was the first time we had heard him sort of say, like, refer to like the F word, which you call gay people, or to like say that there's like overt homophobia happening.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not sure when this episode will release, but like we're talking about it in a like post United States gold medal winning moment. And I have found that entire phenomenon to be like emotionally complex for queer people, because it sort of is like this like points to a larger problem around like where people can't connect the dots. So you have the American gold medal team like celebrating with a regime that is like openly homophobic, but then some of those players have openly talked about how not having Pride nights is bullshit, and they are in support of queer communities, and they want to be there when somebody does come out. So it's like a really complex, sort of interesting way to look at how like homophobia appears in sports, how it may not be as bad as we think it would be for someone to come out, or it could be worse. There's a lot of like really complex things to think about it. And I thought that, you know, one of the things that Heated Rivalry did so well overall is like not wasting a single moment with a word, you know, and just like in a 2-minute opening sort of distills all that into a speech that is like weepy. But then when you think about it, there's just like so much real world subtext to it.
Yeah. It's really good at showing it's really good at showing stuff without overtly telling us.
Yeah.
So it just across the board, it does that in many different ways.
Yeah, consistently too throughout the whole show. It's not just like an episode here or there that does it. They're really good about that.
I did see a tweet when this came out too about how like he like Scott is like the best boyfriend because he didn't even make his boyfriend come with him to like a 5-hour event and just sit there in the crowd and
alone for most of it.
Alone, right? Yeah, and that was funny to me.
Yeah, I saw some people being like, how dare he? Like, why wouldn't he take Kip with him? I'm like, Kip doesn't want to be there. Kip wants to be at the bar watching it on the TV like he is.
Yeah. And like from a production standpoint, we just know it's all because they just didn't have the money to put that many people in more expensive clothes and have to show an audience to show Kip in the audience, you know? Like
I was gonna say there's a reason we didn't see the crowd.
Right. And I think it worked though, because like you said, he wanted to be being in the bar and surrounded by his people was way more comfortable for him to celebrate that with Scott, rather than having to sit in a room of probably a lot of people who are homophobic and have been saying those homophobic things online since this happened, and have to be surrounded by that would be really hard. I saw an interview with Jacob where he was talking about the cheering that happens in the background, you know? And it was really interesting because I guess originally they had whoever does that part of the production, the sound, I don't know all the technical terms, but that person had it like a really big, loud cheering. And he's like, no, I don't think that would work. And that's not what would really happen. So I appreciated that he changed it and had him dial it down, even though like to keep it real, even though it would have been great to think it would have been like a whole crowd full of people cheering, you know, like if it was at the SAG Awards or something, it would have been a whole crowd of people cheering, but this is not that same context. And so I appreciated that as much as he wanted to make it like a really positive, happy, you know, like queer show, he also kept elements of it real like that. And I appreciated that.
I love that you mentioned the budget, because one thing that I'd love to talk about today, or when we're going to talk about, because since we're the last episode, I assume we'll talk a little bit about the future of Heated Rivalry and what it's going to mean. But I think that the like low budget for this show is a superpower for it.
I agree.
The fact that they had to be so creative within parameters, and the fact that they had to like distill so many thoughts and feelings into few words in few scenes because they only had 6 episodes to do it, ended up being like what made this like lightning in a bottle. So I'm happy to like sacrifice crowd shots and pretty dresses at this event for like the end product of what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed. And I'm kind of like, of the many things that like make me trepidatious of like feeling the same way about season 2 and 3 and moving forward, like that's one of them. Like I want them to be able to work with more resources, of course, because they deserve it, and they can be more creative with it. But at the same time, like what really worked was the fact that they had to find ways to make things function, like with MacGyver it. Like they had like a stick of butter and a prayer, and they made it into something really special.
Yeah,
I personally think if they get a bigger budget, which even though they've pretty clearly said they probably won't, because it's
right.
And if you look at other shows like that got really huge like that, like Schitt's Creek and stuff, it didn't change how it was working because it had the same budgetary changes, I think. But like if they got a bigger budget, I would personally just rather they made it the same as they did and just give the people involved in it more money.
Correct,
like put your extra money into salaries across the board, not just for the actors but for the makeup people, for everybody, but keep it being made in this sort of small budgetary restrictions on your locations. And if they do get more money out of it, that would be my personal preference of how they use the money, because I'd love, like you said, I'd love to see them just keep making it look the same. Like it was, like you said, so powerful because it was done so small.
Yeah, you had to communicate with colors and lighting and things like that rather than special effects. And I think that's something really cool. It does seem like, I don't know Jacob Tierney, but from his interviews, it does sound like he would focus more on making sure that his staff were fairly compensated for the success of the project. And frankly, like there was so much media about folks like the costume designer and the cinematographer. I feel like I know them better than like my first cousins at this point for how many like Instagram posts there were about like what each item of clothing in this show meant, right? So you can tell that he cares deeply about the staff that he put together to make this happen.
So I'm not going to read the full Scott speech because it's long, but like basically he's saying, you guys who know what it's like to win the cup, you know how it feels. And like, there's no words to describe it. But, this other thing that happened, I can talk about. And so he focuses more on the coming out and like what that meant. He says he has like a lot of young fans that are reaching out to him and, thanking him for coming out. And he says, I'm grateful to do it, but I also know what it's like to not fit in. And then he goes into like the locker room and the words that they were using and realizing that he was different growing up and how that kind of forced him into this hiding and how exhausted he was from the nonstop effort that it takes to hide and how lonely it is. And so once he gets to the line about being really, really lonely is when we start getting our like fast cuts to the bar. And we see everyone's there, Sean, Maria, Kyle, Elena, Kip. And he says, thankfully, I found the person who changes everything. And literally all of their faces light up. And they turn and look at Kip, who's like blushing. And he says, and he gave me the confidence and strength that I need to be honest about who I am. And Elena, I feel like, is the most ecstatic, which makes sense because she's like his bestie. But I want to talk about the nuanced performance we get from Matthew Finlan. Because I feel like I don't see people talking about this. We learn in Game Changer that Kyle has a thing for Kip. And when Scott says, I found the one who changes everything, Kyle's smile breaks out so fast. His eyebrows shoot up, his jaw drops. He looks over at Kip and he's like genuinely happy for him. But then you see as he's looking at Kip, his face kind of changes and it morphs into this disappointment. And he like touches his beer, and I don't know how to verbally explain this, but like, when you're frustrated or like near a breaking point and you like go to grab something or do something and you have that moment of hesitation and then you're like, yeah, I'm doing it. That's kind of like what he did with the beer. And it was just like I feel like him grappling with the fact that, yeah, I'm watching this man on TV profess his love for the only guy in this city that I want. And that fucking sucks. And I think he just absolutely slayed it in that it's just such a split second moment. But you can see his face like change as he grabs that beer.
It's kind of similar to what Shane does when he's watching Ilya win the cup. Like just that really subtle storytelling of I'm so happy for the person that I care about, but internally I'm also crushed about this. Like, I think it's a really good way of saying like two things can be true at once. You can be really happy for somebody and also be really upset for what that same happiness for that person means for you, you know, that when it's disappointment. So I noticed that more in this rewatch now that I have read more of the books. I haven't read Common Goal yet, but you get more of some of his story in the one about Ryan.
Oh,
I
Tough
can't
Guy.
remember the name. Tough Guy. Yeah, there's some of his story, is some of that background in it as well, and there's some of it also into the long game. Like you see some, you know, you hear some of it throughout, and so I noticed it more as I paid attention from now that I'm reading further along.
Yeah. I had the absolute pleasure of meeting Matthew virtually and some of the other actors from the show for Slayer Fest. And I must say that Matthew was so freaking wonderful. And he is the only one who brought up Heartstopper of all of them. So naturally, once the interview was over, I attacked him. It was like, so you mentioned Heartstopper, you know? And I was like, well, those are my children. So let me tell you about how much I love them. And we did like the little like Ilia Pasta shoulder dance in Happiness about our mutual Heartstopper love, and it was adorable. And he did mention that Jacob mentioned to him on set and was like, have you read your book? You should read it. So he has read Common Goal now.
One thing I wanted to point out about the speech that you said, I loved how we saw the same thing happen in season 3 when Kip is watching the game with his dad, and then how it like goes from being on the screen to then it being the live and then back. Like I loved how they did that again. So it was like a nice little tie-in. And those same words that you mentioned, I also made a note of because I felt like that speech was so relatable. It's exhausting, the nonstop effort and how lonely it is. Like I felt like that part of that speech was so relatable for every queer person who has been hiding themselves, even if they were hiding themselves from themselves, you know, like, just in general, those are really good descriptions of what it feels like to be in hiding, which I love then is the contrast of him saying that while he is no longer in hiding, like he is able to be out there and not having to feel that way anymore. And I love that. I think that's really amazing. I did miss, though, I always feel like every time I hear that speech when he says, I found the one thing that was worth living for or whatever. And I'm always like, she should have said the word love right there. I don't know why. It feels like it's missing to me every time. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, he says, I love you. But instead of just like, it says like love.
He says the one person that changes everything.
Yeah,
I feel like that's almost more powerful than saying, I found someone I love, because he's emphasizing the impact that the love had.
Yeah.
But it's all perspective, so.
Yeah.
I also really liked the end where he talks about, like, fear is a powerful thing. And then I found the one thing that's more powerful.
That's the part I was missing. I wish he just said love, because it's like the one thing is more powerful, not just the one person. Like, the fact that it's the love is more powerful, not just that he loves Kip or that Kip loves him, you know, like, because it transcends a particular relationship. It's just me. I felt like it was missing, but that's okay. It's just me.
Yeah, I feel like I would feel that way if he didn't immediately say it after. Because he also says, like, so I share this with my teammates and my coaches, but I also share it with you, Kip. And I love that he says his name out on TV. And he's like, you've made me better in every conceivable way. I love you. And I'm like, it's just so sweet.
And all the way, also, that's a beautiful suit he's wearing, by the way.
Yes, I had a note about the suit as well.
It's a really nice looking suit on him.
Yeah. That color, that shade of blue is nice.
Yeah, it's a really good color on him.
Also, the trophy that he grabs is like half his body size, and he is huge. So I'm like, how big is that trophy?
I guess this is the last time we see Francois Arnaud, right? So, like, shout out to him. He was great in this. After reading the book, he was not at all like what they were, what they describe in the book, but still, like, is the spirit of Scott Hunter and is great. And I think that he has been just fantastic in real life, fighting back against psychos online and doing whatever he wants to do. And it's nice to have like a mature actor who has gone through it all, who is sort of like helping the newbies. So just shout out to him for being a great presence in our media for the past 2 or 3 months, and not hard on the eyes either.
Yeah. So then we hard cut to Shane tapping on the steering wheel in the car, and I'm like, Buddy is so anxious. I was like, his tummy hurts. My tummy would hurt. This has been so long in the making. But I love the detail, and this was also they keep this from the book, which is really, I love when they keep like little teeny stuff from the book, but that we hear the roller bag coming before we see Ilya.
Yep.
And also, can I just say, this is a tiny bag. I'm like, what did you even pack? This is the size bag I take for a one night.
He did not expect to be wearing very many clothes the whole time.
It's true.
We know these guys don't walk. They wear more clothes in this episode, though, I think, than they do in any other episode together.
Well, they have more time, right? You know?
Yeah, but their clothes stay on longer in this episode than they ever do in the others. So it is funny that he has this tiny bag, but he probably just thinks I'll just borrow Shane's clothes if I need to, which he does.
Yeah. I was like, I wonder what it's like to be a minimalist.
Can't relate. I wonder though, like it is amusing to me to wonder at the Ottawa airport what the chances are of the world's, I guess, most famous hockey player wandering through there disguised by only a pair of sunglasses and
looking fine as hell.
Recognized. Yeah, looking fine as hell, not being recognized. Like he's gonna stand out no matter what. So it's funny to me that we're supposed to believe that Ilya is getting through Ottawa International without anybody detect him there.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't have like tinted windows the entire car. You know?
He probably would have if he could have.
Yeah.
In his sensible car.
I also want to note, like, they both have on sunglasses in this scene, and later in the episode, they don't wear sunglasses, even though it's just as sunny. I was like, they still feel the need to hide at this point. Like, yes, from their teams and the fans and whatever, but also from each other a little bit. Like, the walls are coming down, but they aren't completely down yet. But later, after the walls are down, there's no more sunglasses. And I just think that's so cute. Like, yeah, they're trying to hide here too, but like just a little deeper meaning. Shane gets even more like nervous and jumpy as Ilya puts his bag in the car and like comes to get in. And I was like, damn it, that's not relatable. I would be freaking out.
Well, I think because we have, and you know, Ashley, we discussed this on Slayerfest too. Another incredible aspect of the show is that it takes you through 10 years, and you know, each episode is a smaller portion of that. But you know, for the 10 years that they have sort of been in each other's orbit, they have not really spent time together where they have to talk. And I think like the analogy that I thought of was like the first time I was like traveling with my current husband, right? Where like everything had been wonderful with us, but I was like, oh God, like what if like we don't travel well together?
Yeah.
What if like being in a different place for like X amount of hours, like, and obviously everything worked out okay in this instance, but like it's a really new world for them of intimacy where it's not just a couple hours and then they're off on their own. It's not texting. Like they are in a place where they have to be comfortable with silence and quirks and another person being around for the first time in their lives together. And, you know, you can love somebody as much as you want to, but if that doesn't work out, then what does it mean?
Right.
And like it's a translation of this is not just stolen moments. This is all the moments, and having to transition into that. And that can be nerve-wracking for people who have been together for years and not actually lived together, or not actually, you know, they've only been dating for years or whatever, or couples that go from being really serious long distance couples to living together. It's a transition every time. And it would be scary also to think like you're essentially sacrificing everything potentially for this person. And what if it doesn't work out, you know, now, because like you think of like how in, episode 5 where Ilya says, I could never go home again. I could never go back to Russia. Essentially, when he calls Shane and says he's coming, he is closing the door on ever going back to Russia, at least to one degree or another. He's like, if I'm in this, that means I'm not going back to my home again, which is like a major thing, and I'll tie that in to something that I want to read from the little segment from the book at the end, but like that he's given up his home, and like, what if that home doesn't feel comfortable either, you know? And
what if Shane is not his home? Yeah. And it's very possible. And that's why when they're in the car, and like, I could read this wrong, of course, but it feels like Shane, with the focus that he has, is more terrified from moment to moment on, you know, I don't want to get caught. I want us to be alone together. I want us to like get to the house, and I've prepared for everything. But when Ilya says he's terrified, I feel like it's more like what we're talking about right now.
Yes.
That the sacrifice has been made, and now I have to figure out if this is actually going to work. That's not to say that Shane is not like capable of or even feeling like those deeper emotions right now, but it does feel more Shane to just be like, I have to handle like what is exactly in front of me, whereas Ilya is taking like a deeper sort of like look at this, and that's why he says that he is terrified and giggles afterwards. And even that, just sort of like being on different pages and not exactly aligning, is, I think, really kind of cute and fun, and like leads up to where they have to like be in alignment at the cottage.
Yeah, totally.
It kind of goes to show just like what they're like, you're a little, just to piggyback a little bit off what you're saying, just like how both of their nervousness presents itself, you know, like Shane is nervous by and he's trying to cover that by saying all the ways he's trying to make sure they're safe, you know, like nobody recognized you at the airport. Okay, that's good. Nobody's going to see us at home. My parents aren't coming. I'm not going to go to I don't need to go to the grocery store. I already went to the grocery store. Like, he's saying all these things to, I think maybe to ease Ilya's anxiety, but it's actually to ease his own, like to say all the things for, and then like Ilya's thing when he's nervous is he gets in the car and he's just like immediately teasing Shane. Like, I think that's his method of like, when he's nervous, he teases him. And it's like, they both kind of know how to put each other at ease in their own nervousness. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but like,
no, perfectly. Yeah. I also just like, I don't think that Ilya would be nervous about the things that Shane is nervous about. Like, I don't think Ilya cares about getting caught, except that Shane would be upset. I don't think that Ilya, I mean, as we see later on, spoiler, like, I don't think that Ilya, like, would mind running into Shane's parents.
Because he already made that choice when he chose to not go to Russia and to stay with Shane. He's already made that choice. And that's sort of a, you know, spoiler for upcoming book and season, but like that is just kind of telling us a little bit about where he's going to be at, and where they're not necessarily going to be on the same page the whole time. So
but before we get into all that, we still have a lot of
sorry.
other it's okay. I just want to point out that, again, another amazing sound design choice that they continue to do throughout the series, where when Ilya gets in the car, we have like all of this music building as he's approaching, and then when he gets in the car and shuts the door, the music cuts off with the door shut. Chef's kiss. He says, "Is this a Jeep?" Which is funny because in the books it is a Jeep.
Yeah.
And I love that he's like, "No, it's British. It's practical. Good in the snow." And he's like, "Okay." But so then we get our title card, and I just wanted to bring up a comment from Discord. 711 on Discord brought up the differences in the title card sounds. So in episodes 1, 2, and 4, we get like the crowd cheering and the skates whooshing, and then 3 and 5 have like a siren and city sounds added in, and 6 we get like the nature and the loon call. And they asked if we thought the siren was specific to the importance of Scott and Kip's journey in relation to Shane and Ilya's journey, being like, hey, pay attention. But I personally think it's just more of a vibe thing, like giving us a taste of the setting we're going to be in. Because like New York City, it would have sirens, and it would, you know, they would be going off, and 3 and 5 need to be tied together. So that makes sense to me. 4 is the one that throws me off. I'm like, we don't really have much hockey in that one. Like 1 and 2, it's like just those transitional hockey moments. But I guess in my mind, in their minds, they are very much living in the "this is my hockey rival" headspace in episode 4.
They're still really focused on hockey still, personally, at that point. Like,
right. Whereas in episode 6, their headspace is more like, this is a man I'm really into, and I want to relax with him and hang out and have an uninterrupted time. So I think that's kind of my idea, but I just wanted to bring that up and see what you guys felt about the title card sounds.
I don't know if it was just me because I didn't re-listen to the other ones, but I felt like, because you do hear the skate swish sound like at the very beginning of this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's just me, but somehow it sounded more delicate, more gentle. Like it's not like rough. Like you,
like it's
sometimes it's like
out.
Yeah, like in the other ones, it's more like cutting, like when they their blades cut the ice, versus this is just like as they're skating. So I don't know if that's intentionally symbolic or anything, but I did notice it seemed a little more
like they're coasting into the cottage.
More gentle. Yeah. Like, yeah. So I don't know if that's symbolic or not. We'd have to ask Jacob. We need to make a list of all the questions we would ask him.
Come on the pod.
And I love having the loon call at the beginning. Like, so just cute. Like that little bit of, don't worry, this part is going to happen in the book, in the show that you wanted it. We all wanted to hear it. So we were so excited to see it.
I have some loon notes later. I ended up on like a loon rabbit hole last night watching loon YouTube. So I have some loon notes later.
As I'm sure lots of people have. So don't feel weird.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
I also want to bring up, I got a DM on Patreon from Eli about the song that plays, the French song that plays in this scene when they're in the car driving. And I'm just going to read their DM. It says, "Hi, I'm not sure if you already have this info, but it's not something I've seen on my feed too much. And I know you like to discuss the soundtrack, so I thought I would share before you record. So this song, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it in French. I'm just going to tell you the translated version. The Anarchy of Happy Days is the name of the song. And it was the theme song for a queer Quebecer show, YA TV show that aired 10 years ago called Le Chalet, which is French for the cottage. And I thought that was a very cool tie-in. And the lyrics are beautiful. It's like, it's always hot with us. Our beauty hurts the suns. We exist now, and that's all. We dance, we laugh, we play, we shout. It's anarchy, happy days. It snows over us, the great fires. Like, it's just all about their, like, burning love, basically. And it's just so beautiful. And that was such
God, that's, like, literally making me tear up.
Yeah. I'll link everything in the show notes. You can, like, read the lyrics and listen to the song and everything. But it's, like, it's so good.
So for every French-speaking Canadian who watched it, they all knew what was going on, and none of us English speakers know.
Exactly.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so they are now driving. As we talked, there's a lot of tension. They don't really know how to act. They're adjusting. And this whole time until the very end of this scene, they don't touch each other. And the whole time that I was watching this episode the first time, I was going, touch each other. Will you reach over and touch his hand? Will you touch his hand? You should touch his hand. Ilya, touch him. Shane, you should touch him. Like, I was just like, what is happening? I need you guys to touch so that I know it's going to be okay. And Shane asks if he's hungry. And he says it's a 2-hour drive. And he says, no, I'm okay. And this got me looking up flights because to me, I have 2 flight experiences. Either they're short and I'm nauseous for like 3 hours after from the short travel, or they're long and I'm starving. And so I checked, and there were plenty of direct flights from Boston to Ottawa, and they were about an hour and a half long. So yeah, I was like, yes, he's in the short and nauseous area. He says, I think you're going to like the cottage. It's relaxing. And Ilya's like, oh, is that what we're going to do? Relax? And Shane says, I hope so. I'd like to relax with you. And my note just says, here we fucking go. Honesty. Finally. It only took us a decade to get it.
And that is when Ilya's teasing of Shane stops. Like, as soon as Shane tells him that he wants to spend time with him and that, like, how much he is excited about that, which we all know, like, that is what Ilya needs to hear. Like, that is what he has been needing and wanting, is somebody who cares about him, like, who actually wants him.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, I think, to me, it's just like Ilya just has this, like, sense of calm come over him. Yeah. And, okay, I don't have to be teasing him anymore because we're on the same page. Like, this is what we both want. And I love that, like, really evident way of showing he goes from teasing to serious as soon as he knows that this is
that
safe.
Shane is serious. Yeah.
Yeah. That it's safe.
It's an appearance by our king of being literal, Shane Hollander.
Yes.
Where even when teasing is happening, he's like, I want to relax with you. And that's great. And like the cottage is a space for them being literal and honest with each other. So this is a little foreshadowing of that.
Yeah. And the way that he delivers, I'd like to relax with you for once, is so real, because like in the past, even when they were together, there was so much anxiety and tension around it that they've literally they've never relaxed together. The last time they tried, things went south.
Yeah. It kind of pulls back to a line that is missing in this show that is in the book that would have been in episode 5, where at the hospital where Shane says, having something, I'm not quoting it exactly, but something like, haven't you ever wished for more time, or something like that? Like how, where, and Ilya is too afraid at that point, if I remember correctly, to say that, yes, he has, like that he's always wanted that. And so I love, like, it's just sort of bringing that idea into it. Like, we want that uninterrupted time together, and we both want it, and we've just been too afraid to say it.
And this is when Shane goes on the, like, I bought groceries. We don't need to leave, or not much, if you don't want to. And like you said, it definitely feels like he's saying that for, like, his own benefit too. He's like, but it's also a spiral that's starting. And I think Ilya picks up on that. And that's why he cuts him off with the, thank you for inviting me. But also, Ilya, you can tell he is so overwhelmed. Like, he wants to relax with me. He bought groceries. He wants to cook for me, ? Like, we know Ilya's love language is like acts of service and caring for those that he loves. And for someone else to do it for him specifically, when we know that no one else really does. I mean, he has Svetlana, but I feel like their relationship is more sporadic and depending on their schedules and stuff, right? It's not consistent or stable. And then on top of all of that, like, he's already done this for Shane, right? Like, he's already invited him to his home and made a meal for him. And so for Shane to be reflecting that is... And
Shane ran away when he did that.
Yeah.
And so now for Shane to be saying, I'm not running away this time, and now I'm going to do it for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Shane says, I'm glad you're here. And this is when he says, me too, but like terrified. Yes. And here's where I want to say that I'm so proud of Shane for continuing to be honest and pushing them along, because Ilya needs that push, right? Like, but he always follows him. It's like he's always on the precipice of admitting his feelings or doing the action, but he needs that last little push, right? Like, Shane admitted he liked him in Tampa. He opens up about his family and then opens up on the phone later. Shane saying that he wants to relax with him, and now he's admitting, oh yeah, but it's also scary. And like, not even just Shane either, right? Scott Hunter comes out, and now Ilya is coming to the cottage. He just needs like that last little push. And that being said, I'm also incredibly proud of Ilya for continuing to push forward as well, because that fear it's a deeper thing for Ilya.
Yeah.
On another level.
He's very afraid of being abandoned, and so he's
and just the rush of it all, right?
Right. He's afraid of putting himself forward until he knows somebody's going to catch him, I think. Is what it kind of seems like.
And that's when they go into the, like, I'm like, speaking of being terrified, he's like, did anyone recognize you in there? And he's like, no, not that I noticed. And he says, the cottage is super private, so we don't need to worry about anything. And Ilya says, not even your parents? And he says, no, I told them I'm on a silent retreat, like a meditation thing. And Ilya just straight up cackle. He's like, what? Does that sound fake? And he's like, yes, if it was anyone but you, it would. And then this is finally where he grabs Shane's hand and holds it between his and like gives him this look. He's such a goner. But also in the books, it's opposite. Shane is the one who makes first contact in the car.
See, and I was going to say, though, when you were saying before that Ilya grabs his hand, the way he does it, I think Shane's hand is on his leg, because he like kind of reaches underneath to grab onto him. Maybe. And I might just have to rewatch it.
Yeah, we'll have to look closer. We'll have to suss that one out.
I guess I just always think of it as being on his leg. It could be on the gear shift too. I think they're so close to each other.
I feel like that's his natural driving stance, right? Mm-hmm. One hand on the wheel, one hand on the gear shift, because we just like see that later too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is the moment that I was like, oh, so they're definitely going to get caught at the cottage. cottage. When he said, not even your parents, I was like, okay. So, yes.
That's right, because you hadn't read the books before, that part of the book before you watched it in the show, did you? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You didn't know it was coming.
Right. I read Game Changer first after episode 3 dropped. I was like, I know we're going to go back to Ilya and Shane, and I need to figure out Scott and Kit because I'm in love with them. And I know that we're not going to focus on them. And then I started Heated Rivalry, and I got all the way up to where Rose calls him out and is like, you're gay. And when I got to that episode, or when I got to that scene, that episode was coming out the next day. And I was like, oh, well, now this isn't going to hit as hard. So I decided to pause. And I watched episodes 5 and 6, and then I finished the book.
And I remember it was really hard for me to talk to you about the show after that because I had already read it. And so I was like dying to talk about it with somebody who cared.
You're not the only one. Everybody was like, what'd you just read? I'm like, no.
I admire your restraint. I don't have that myself.
It was hard. So then we cut to their getting out of the car at the cottage, and this one shot, you guys. Y'all know I love a one shot, especially a well done one shot. And this one is so long and perfect.
Yeah, I timed it. It's like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I meant to look it up this morning, but I forgot to look up how long often they
like the average
are.
one shot. Yeah,
because this one seems way longer than what you see in a lot of shows. So
unless it's like Adolescence, which is all a one shot,
which is the entire show. It's a one shot. So
exactly
a one shot of trauma. The entire time.
That one doesn't count as far as one shots go because it writes the book about them. So
the start of the one shot though is extremely like husband behavior.
Yes.
As Shane, grabs the bag from him because he knows the ribs are still hurt, and they're kind of bickering a little bit as they go into the cottage. And I guess, like, is this a good time to talk about like the difference in our English language in America and Canada for like what cottage means for
Please
folks?
Do.
And we saw the footage of Shane's like Cribs episode or whatever it is that Ilya watches, where we know that this cottage is like a very big
lake house,
architectural wonder that he has built at a lake with like gorgeous windows and wood furnishings inside, etc., etc. And I saw a lot online about how from Americans where we were all like,
this is not a cottage.
That is not a cottage. that is a glassy mansion is what that is. But in Canada, like any sort of like second property that they have, whether it is the Crystal Cathedral that Shane Hollander built from scratch, or a trailer that somebody has like in a swamp, is the cottage to them. So it was just very funny to me to have like Canadians come in and have to like translate what cottage culture is there for we Americans who are like, now come on, that is not a cottage. You invited him to a cottage, and look where you're going.
Right. I have a couple Canadian friends, so like as I was watching it and actively complaining about the term cottage, they were like, so actually, I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
I have a note that says that Shane is just in full on host mode. He's like perfectly Canadian here, like carrying the bags, opening the door.
Yeah.
Then he like goes in and tells him all the things he's doing, all the ways in which he's hosting him, essentially, like everywhere which way he has planned for it, which is just so perfectly Canadian to me after living there.
That's funny.
He's also like filibustering a bit, as you do when you're like so nervous that something is happening. And like, even though we all know that like physical intimacy is imminent, as it always is with these chemistry monsters, it's still like Shane just being like, look, I have a well.
Yeah.
And
the well gets me every time.
Just pointing out everything that he has. And it's obviously leading up to an intimate moment between them, which is like both physically and emotionally intimate, which is Heated Rivalry's specialty. So I'll let you introduce it, Ashley.
Yeah. So I actually have a note. When he's carrying the bag into the house, I was like, opposite of you, Andy. I'm like, oh. So he has a bellboy kink. Like, he's planned this. I was like, my note says, Shane Hollander, you little freak. You have a hotel staff guest fantasy, and I see you.
Oh, that's so funny. My mind did not go there at all. It was just like, he is just being the perfect little Canadian. He is carrying his bags for him. He is, when they go inside, of course, like there's the banter, which I know you like to read out, but like, I love how that it's like a nod to, there's a lot of little subtle things that happen. Like Ilya wipes his feet when he goes into the house before he goes in. Also very like respectful, especially like Canadians. I don't want to speak for them because I'm not a Canadian, but the time that I lived in Canada, I learned like shoes are very disrespectful in a house. Like you do not wear them past a doorway, and you always wipe your feet before you go in. And as somebody
with like half Asian husband experience, me, those shoes would not get past the doormat in our house.
That's it. And that's the way it was for Americans, at least the way I grew up. That was not the case, and it was really weird to me when not weird in a bad way, but like it was a strange thing to me when I went to Canada. Like the first time I went to somebody else's house, and they were like looking at me strange because I hadn't taken off my shoes yet, and to learn that, that's super important. So I love that Ilya does that. Like at this point, he knows you take off your shoes at a Canadian person's house.
I think it's also prominent in Russia too.
It might be. Yeah, it was that way in Russia. I mean, in Germany too. So
a lot of people complaining about in episode 4 when Shane's like, "Did I take off my shoes?" And he said no, and everybody was like, he would say yes. He would say yes. I mean,
Shane. To me, that also, like when I watched it, I was like, Shane wouldn't even ask. He would just take them off. Like he would not, like as a Canadian, think it's even a question. You just take them off. Like.
Right.
I love the way that when Ilya comes in, he is immediately like taking everything in. Like his head is turning every direction. He's soaking in every single detail that he can. And they walk through. He says, "Wow, your real estate fetish really paid off, right?" That cracks me up. And Shane's like, "I didn't buy this. I had it built." And he says, "Oh, I know." And I'm like, I have seen your MTV Cribs episode. I have it saved on the DVR. It is my favorite film.
And nobody else is allowed to watch it but me.
Right. I also love the massive Canadian accent that slips out of Hudson when he says, "I can give you a tour."
Tour?
If you like. And he says, "I can make some lunch. There's plenty of food." And you see a basket on the counter that has like Cheetos and Doritos and maybe like some barbecue chips in it. I saw someone say, "Oh, he definitely bought those for Shane or for Ilya because Shane would never touch anything with Red 40 in it." And I was like, so true. So true.
Yep.
He picked up some Cokes.
Yes. He bought him Cokes. And then this whole episode is like such a mirror of episode 4, but like if it went right.
Yes.
And Shane was like, "I felt special when he bought me ginger ale and cooked for me, so I'm going to buy him Cokes and cook for him." And it works. The water here is really good. "I have my own well. You can see it in case you're thirsty. You can see it" is one of the best lines. I love it. It's so sweet. My son. Ilya starts to like walk towards Shane because I feel like this also is another way of him spiraling, right? He's like trying to fill the silence. He doesn't know how to just be quiet. And so he's standing there awkwardly with his little hands in his little pockets in his uncomfortable stance, the same way that we've seen him do. But as Ilya gets closer, he starts to relax and smile. And I want to give a shout out to Katie, who was on episode 5, who pointed out to me when we were watching it together recently, the detail of Ilya's hair in this shot and like how the back of it is messed up from the car ride. Like how he was like rubbing, the headrest. Like there's the hat line from where he had it on, but it's also messed up from like leaning in the car. And like, who thinks like, "Oh, he's been in a car ride, we got to fix his hair." Like that is just such a tiny, teeny, minuscule little detail that is so perfect.
I kind of felt like as before we jump into the sexy part, like I feel like part of it is of Shane listing all these things that he's doing. Like, yes, it's like his nervous ramble, but like you said, it's sort of a mirror of what should have happened in episode 4. Like Shane is telling Ilya all these things that he's going to do to take care of for him. I bought all this food. I bought the Cokes that you like, but there is healthy, clean water as well. Like all these ways he's talking about how he's going to take care of him. And then Ilya comes up to him and then he gives Shane the thing that he needs, which leads
Right.
into sex, right? But it's almost like the flip-flop of the other episode. Shane got what he needed in the sex, and then Ilya tried to give him what Ilya needed, which was somebody to care for him. He tried to, like, so it's like they finally both figured it out, what the other person needs and how to give it to each other. And like they may not like be verbally saying yet that this is like, I figured you out, but they're showing that they've figured out what the other person needs for that level of comfort and love. Mm-hmm. So I love how they showed that without telling us that.
Yeah. They don't sit down and have a conversation. They just show it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that like Shane's filibustering before Ilya comes over, and because he's so afraid of silence, is also sort of like reflected by the fact that I believe from this point on we don't get a music cue again. Right. There's no interstitial music. There's no needle drops until they get into the car. So like the choice that they make here is that there's going to be silence in the background for them. I thought that was really interesting.
We do get the piano song.
The piano
for the
song.
Sex scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
then after that, there's nothing.
Nothing else. Yeah. And there's nothing before that either. It's just silence.
Mm-hmm. And a similar note I saw a lot about that too, which I think is a really good point, is that like previously all the things we see of them having their phones on them all the time, they're always like looking at their phones. And other than that one phone call from Hayden, we don't see them have, I guess, and then on the couch, but like they're not attached to their phones the same at this point anymore, because the person they really wanted
together.
The person they wanted to hear from is in front of them. So
yeah. And I love this like very split second of eye contact where Ilya just like caresses his face before he starts kissing him, and they just kind of look at each other like, we did it, we're here. And then this kiss is both slow and sensual and 0 to 60 in intensity all at once, which is perfect and exactly how it reflects how they're feeling, right? And they start to move towards the couch, and they have to go down the stairs, and they're like all giggly, and Ilya is immediately trying to put his hands in Shane's shirt. They bump into the lamp. Also, this lamp doesn't even look like it's plugged in unless the outlet is just like so close that the cord, because the cord is still like all bundled up like it is when you first buy a lamp. And I'm like, is it plugged in? Is there an outlet close enough to it? But he also just has the amount of lamps between these two boys could light a fucking city. Like both of their places are full of lamps.
I saw something online about that, and like people were surprised by it, and they were like, have you ever met a gay man before? Because gay men's homes are just filled to the brim with all sorts of lighting devices. So it's not that surprising. But they went like through Ilya's house and just like how many lamps there were in all spaces. And maybe that's where the whole budget went. Who knows?
To the lamps, yes.
Just the lamps. The lamp budget was a quarter of Heated Rivalry's budget.
There's also a hockey book on that little wall that they walk past, which I think is really funny, because it's like there's no books in this house other than this one book that Shane is reading about, of course, about hockey again. So that's like a funny little callback to the book too, where that's all he reads is books about hockey.
Hockey is his life.
He's reading one book it's like called The Philosophy of Ice, I believe.
Yeah, it's that same book. It's sitting on that shelf. It's so fun. It's funny to me.
Lord. He has one book.
Yeah. He has one interest. Well, he has two interests, but hockey is one of them.
So they fall back on the couch, and they're both laughing, and the camera like has moved down the steps with them and is now like panning around to get to close back up on them. And this is where I made the note. It's dead silence as we entered the cottage. It's just been them and the sounds of nature. And I was like, my note was that all the noise that has surrounded them all of these years is effectively shut out now that they're here, and it's just them. And Ilya is like undoing Shane's shorts, trying to get in there, and Shane's like, wait, it's been a while, so I might not last long. And he says, yeah, same, but we have 2 weeks. And Shane's like, cool. Wait, what? And so Ilya's like, what? And he's like, you said same. You haven't been with anyone lately? And Ilya's like, no. And Shane's like, not since. And he's like, not since. So can we? And he's like, really? really? Like, his smile is so big. I'm like, have we ever seen this big of a smile from Shane? And Ilya's like, Hollander, it's not a big deal, okay? And he's like, yeah, but it's been, and he says, months. Yes, I know. So can we please fuck now? And he says, I haven't either, not since last time. And he like fully relaxes on top of him and starts to kiss him. And my note just says, I'm going to jump off a cliff. Shane is so happy. I think it's so obvious that like Shane doesn't go out or like bring people home. And I think in the books, Shane dabbles a little bit more, not nearly as much as Ilya, but like he talks, a little bit about sexual experiences, whereas the show,
but like only out of desperation, not
right.
Because,
but like even in the show, we only like even every time that we see Ilya out, like we see Shane at home reading in bed, like he doesn't do that. But Ilya is like a walking boner who always has consistently over the years probably had multiple partners between their hookups, and so this like really means something that he's gone months without sleeping with anyone else.
And it's been a long time. This has been since probably like February, if my math is correct. So from February to July, this man who couldn't make it like more than a week or two in between hooking up with somebody is now holding off all that time just to wait to be with Shane again, which that means a lot to Shane because as we know, like sex is Shane's like a big deal for him. So
he's far less casual than Ilya about sex.
Yeah.
And he says, I have an idea. And Ilya lets out the biggest sigh and Shane giggles. And Ilya's like, what?
Connor does that face really well too. Like the way he rolls his eyes and like looks away, like he just does it so well.
Yeah. He says, for the next 2 weeks, let's just be honest with each other about what we actually think and maybe how we really feel. And Ilya his smile breaks out quick and he says, I will try. And I also have a note here that also says, I'm going to jump off a cliff. And I said, this smile says everything. Like he's going to cover it up immediately with the next bit of dialogue, but you can tell that he's like genuinely happy with this idea. And is this a good time, I guess, to bring up in the book that this is the point in the cottage where Ilya says, not this specific bit, but this scene where he says, don't tease me. I've waited too long for this. And Shane is like, months. And Ilya says years. And Shane is like, years. And he's like, he just owns it and gives him eye contact and is like, yeah. And I'm like, Ilya has really been hurt by the fact that Shane has never truly brought him home. And later in the books, he is like, does this mean that I can see your Montreal place now, like your real one? And so I wish they would have kept a little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
I know that it's a little different because he doesn't have like the fuck shack in the show the way that he did in the book. But
I had a couple of spots over these next few sections that are from the book that had like lines that I just thought were really meaningful. And so like at this point where Shane asks Ilya to be honest, I really love, and I think Connor does a good job showing this, but maybe in the show he looks a little more like exasperated to have to deal with this at this moment. But like in the books, his thoughts say, I can't because if I do, you'll think I'm pathetic, or worse, you'll say it back. And then what the fuck are we supposed to do? And I just love that because it's like shows us he's feeling so vulnerably afraid. And then he says, I'll try. And I love that. That was something one of the couple of lines that I picked out from the book to mention that I thought was really impactful there.
Yeah.
And I also love how like after they say that, like this mirrors a lot of the touches that happen in the hospital, like where Ilya's like stroking Shane's face at the hospital while he's in the bed. And in this one, Shane is stroking him. And like, I love later, which it kind of mirrors this scene too, like that Shane is laying right on top of Ilya right now, asking him to be brave. And then it flip-flops in the later scene where Ilya is laying on top of Shane being brave.
Yeah.
Like I just love that.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
so good.
Like, almost every scene in this episode like refers to another scene. Like it's really good writing where it's either the mirror of another scene or like, as we'll see when they get to the bedroom, like the positions that they're in are the exact same way that they were from the first time that they hooked up. Like everything is a reference, which is a clever way to wrap things up, especially if you don't know you're getting a second season Although, parenthetically, I think they always knew that they were. But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
And I think that's really well done too in a house that's like built of windows, which show like two sides mirror everything. So it's like it's kind of symbolic, you know, that they're in this house that lets everything in, all the light in, all the reflections. It's just really well done. It's so beautiful.
The walls are down. So he's like, I'll do anything if it'll make you touch my dick right now. And like grabs his hand and pushes it down. And Shane giggles. And this is where I have the note, Bellboy Fantasy Engage. Should I show you to your room? And Ilya like kisses him and like smacks his face a little bit. And my note is just, by the way, this hand that he smacks him with has been down Shane's pants from the moment that they hit the couch, which is the opposite of their first time hooking up, when Shane's hand goes in Ilya's pants. And they're like, in the first scene, they're like making out frantically and stuff. They're communicating with their bodies. But this time the holdup is that they're communicating with their actual words.
Good point.
And this is the end of the one shot. And we cut to them like going back up the stairs. I love the little detail of like they're not really holding hands. Shane is just kind of holding on to one of Ilya's fingers, dragging him along, which is cute. Shane says there's 2 guest rooms downstairs, so there's plenty to choose from. And my note says Ilya sensed the kink. His kinkometer was going off, so he said, "Let me remember the master bedroom specs from that special." Ah, yes. Okay, I will need a king-size bed. And Shane says, they all have a king-size bed. And a view. They all have a view. And I need, what do you call? An ensuite bathroom. And he says, well, that might be a problem. And Ilya's like, oh, why is that? And he says, there's only one room with an ensuite, and it's mine. And they like go up and cross. As they're like crossing through the dining room, Ilya turns so you can like see his face as he's looking at stuff, and he is fucking beaming. He is so happy.
Yeah, as if they were ever gonna not share a bedroom too, which I just think is so funny that they have to joke about it, but they were never not gonna be in the same room.
Yeah. This is awkward. This room isn't available to the guests. And Ilya like gets all up in his space and is like, disappointing. And he says, I'm sorry, sir. We'd really like to accommodate you, but and Ilya cuts him off by shoving him onto the bed and like climbing on top of him, and we get, sir, I'm just a bellboy. You can't treat the staff like this. Which is one of my favorite lines ever. So much so that I have it on I made a custom crop top that says, sir, I'm just a bellboy, in gold glittery letters.
It's nice to see him playful. Like,
yeah, we never see it.
Actually, the only time that we really see him being like super playful is when he's allowed to queen out with Rose. So for him to be able to like do that with Ilya, I think is really cute.
Yeah.
I think that Ilya kind of unleashed it in him too. Like when they walked in the bedroom, he slaps him on the butt, you know, like it's like, okay, now you can be silly. Like this doesn't have to be so serious.
Yeah. Roleplay in the past was like deadly serious, sexy, but deadly serious. And this is like, they're actually allowed to have a little bit of fun, which is nice.
It's nice to see. Ilya says, oh, I think I know how the staff likes to be treated after all these years. And there's like this heavy second where they're looking at each other. Not really heavy, but like charged. Like, because after all these years, they do know each other so well, especially in this specific way. And they kiss, and Shane does like the cutest little satisfied moan, which is adorable. And
just like melts into the bed. Like that was the end of the plane. Like now I am melting into the bed.
Correct. Ilya's like all over him, and he, Shane's like, wait. And Ilya's like, what? And he like pushes him off and gets up and grabs the remote, and he starts to lower the blinds. And Ilya's like, no, and takes the remote and puts him back up. And I was like, I was promised a super private experience, sir. The natural light will be staying. And he like shoves Shane against the wall and tosses the remote behind him. And this is where I have, like, they're in the same positions, but there's like the subtle differences between the two show how much they've grown, with it being the exact same choreography, though. Like they're in the same positions. The first thing that Ilya did in the first hookup was grab Shane's pec with one hand. And the first thing he does in this scene is grab both of his nipples because, it's a bolder move. He doesn't have to worry. They're not like figuring it out. They know what each other likes. And then we have like the face grab, which is in both scenes, but this one is more intense. And then Shane like sinks to his knees and Ilya has his left hand on the glass and his right hand like in Shane's hair. But this time they're in the light in a room full of like windows and natural light, and unguarded is the word that I wrote down. They're unguarded. I love the editors who like do the flashes, but it's cuts between the two to show you how mirrored it is. It's so good. Shout out to all the editors out there keeping us going.
And I also have to shout out, I think, to Connor and Hudson and just like the way that they so unabashedly, maybe is the right word, committed to doing this like justice, because so much media, and like I totally understand why there is a lot of safety necessary in media about sex scenes. Like I get that, and I think it's important for every actor to be able to have their own boundaries and to say what's comfortable or not comfortable for them, right? Like I totally get that and I respect it and I think it's super important. But also like there's something different to the way these two have been willing to do it, because we know they acknowledged that this is how they wanted to do it, that they're not faking any of this, like this is, I mean, faking it in that they're acting. I don't mean that they're actually going at it together. I just mean they're not like pretending to kiss each other's necks like we see maybe, for example, like in Heartstopper.
Yeah.
They're actually doing it, and it just makes it feel more charged and like electric. And I appreciate that, because like as an audience member, you can see ones that do that where they're obviously faking it, and it kind of pulls you out of the scene a little bit to me. Like it's not that it's a negative thing, because again, I respect that actors want to do it what's safe for them, but I love that you can feel like it just keeps that realness in there.
Yeah. I mean, even in episode 3, we talked about the differences between like Scott and Kip's sex scenes and Shane and Ilya's sex scenes, and how they're like, they obviously are kissing each other and doing all the things, but like it still doesn't come across as like crazy, fiery, passionate the way that Shane and Ilya is, and it's all just acting choices and the way that they were able to go like 110% on the sex scenes, and it's no fault to Robbie and
no,
Francois,
not at all.
but everybody's going to be more comfortable with different things, and so it's just seeing the juxtaposition between the sex scenes even in just this show really highlights that.
I also have a comment of how quick do we think that Shane cleaned those windows after they finished?
Oh, immediately. Like, I also saw somebody say Ilya knew, like, when he touched it, that was going to be an issue, so he offered to do it, and Shane, like, let him, but then circled back after to make sure he did it right. You know?
There's a bottle of Windex in every room.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, that's in my note, that I bet there's a bottle of Windex, like, in a hidey hole somewhere in every single bedroom, every single room, so he can clean them every single day.
So we cut to Ilya walking outside as Shane grills burgers, and there's just like this very quick expression when he comes out and sees Shane at the grill, where he like smiles like so just like lovingly, and like a little piece of him melted that he was cooking, and then he like schools it and walks back over to him. So I just love like the pure love and admiration we see in that one little split second before he schools his face. And he walks over and he's like, why are you making so many burgers? And Shane is like, the recipe is for 8. So, and I'm like, relatable content. I was raised in a family of 5. I'm 34 years old. I still don't know how to cook for just me. I cook for 5. That is how I know how to cook. So I was like, I get this. And Shane's like, leave me alone. And Ilya like grabs his hip and pulls him back into his body and says no, and kisses him on the back of the neck, which ends my existence. I am going to jump off a cliff.
Yeah, because that's so Nick and Charlie coded right there. Like that's just very Nick recharging against Charlie.
I know.
Now the colors of their clothes are matching right here. Like it's all just very like intentional to show that they're moving forward.
If I recall, the shirt that Ilya is wearing is one that Shane has already worn, so that they are, or was that like
it's flipped?
or
So
is he
the one
about to
that
wear? Okay.
the one that Shane, the flannel that Shane is wearing right now, Ilya wears on the couch later.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yes, whether it was just being a man with out of care for aesthetics, bringing a small bag, or whether it was strategy to get to wear your boyfriend's clothes, we don't know. But there is proof that it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we cut to them eating at the dinner table out back, and I just want to point out that we see all of the burgers out with all of the toppings already prepared, and all of the condiments are
Who does that?
reusable containers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do we think this is? I have questions. Do we think this is because of his diet and he's like making his own stuff? Is it because of like preferences? Like he found the perfect one and this is the perfect one, so he figured out how to make it and now he keeps it all the time? Or is it more like organization, like I need things to be in my bottles specifically and know where they are and where they're going?
That's kind of how I think, like that he sees it in his fridge, like he needs all the same bottles in the fridge. Like the mix match of them is just not normal for him. But I love how this is a really good way of saving money on product placement, like of having to get contracts signed. Because even if a brand wants to be in a show as a product placement, there's still like, lawyer fee, there's still all sorts of stuff of red tape to do. Whereas if you just put it in these nondescript bottles, you save yourself all of that. So I love that way, but it also does, I think it's very Shane, autistic Shane coded that he just needs, like he needs to have everything in the same bottles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair, I would prefer to see it like that in my fridge too. It would look so much prettier.
Also, you say who does that about like having everything out, but that's how my mom would prepare stuff. Like it would all
really
she would like make everything separate and put them in there,
in the burgers, in the buns, and everything, and with all the toppings.
I mean, the
on
burgers
them.
Didn't have the toppings on it. The toppings were laid up on a separate. It had cheese on it. It was a burger bun and cheese, and then there was lettuce, tomato, onion.
Interesting. I always just when we serve it, we just have the buns out in a pile and the patties on a plate, and like everything is separate for everybody to put together on their own how they want it. So but I would never do that. It's more like the fact that he did that when it was just the two of them to me, like it's sitting in the middle of the table, like they're having company to take all of them, like maybe in that case I would have understood it more, but it's funny how he did it just for the two of them like that.
Yeah. And with 8 burgers.
Right, because those buns are now ruined. Like you can't go on and eat those later. Like they're gonna be all gooey from the oils and everything. You can't like reheat them like that.
It depends on the person, I guess.
I suppose you could, but I don't think Shane would reheat them in that way because it's not going to taste right.
Right. I don't think Shane does leftovers. Which is why he says, like, ordinarily I would give it to my parents, but I guess that would ruin my whole, like, silent retreat lie.
Mm.
I think he brings it to his parents, and I think his parents immediately throw it away, but they don't want to tell Shane.
They don't tell him.
That they're being wasteful. Yeah.
They're, like, hiding the food they just ate of their own so that he doesn't know.
Exactly. Just so he doesn't feel bad.
Yeah. Also, the slices of the tomatoes and the pickles and onions were huge, like super thick, which I noticed. And I thought it was funny because I think at some point in the conversation, Ilya picks one of the slices onion. Of something. I think an onion. And I'm like, man, that man's mouth is burning. That is a thick slice of onion just to eat all by itself.
Yeah. So he brings up that about taking it to his parents. And Ilya's like, David and Yuna, yes. And he's like, yeah. And Ilya is like, and he's like, and what? And he's like, tell me about him, which is so cute.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what do you want to know? And he says, I don't know. I don't know anything. I know that your mother is Japanese or something, probably where you get your looks. And he like touches Shane's face. And Shane says, half of them. Yeah. I love how Shane like rides hard for his dad. He's like, half of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and what? Your dad is what? Boring? Is that where you get your boring from? And he's like, he's not boring. And Ilya's like, oh, so he's exciting reading the New Yorker? And I'm like, Ilya really soaked in every word that Shane ever said to him ever and held on to it.
Yeah.
Well, and also I feel like this is a really good illustration of another way in which Ilya has figured Shane out,
Mhm.
because as we've seen throughout the whole show, every time Shane tries to reach out to Ilya, it's about his family. It's like he's asking Ilya about his family, because Shane's world revolves around hockey and his family. Those are his two things. And so in his mind, he's like, that's what he would connect with the person he cares about, because those are important. That's what's important to him. And we know they connect and talk about hockey. So the next thing on Shane's list is my family. And it's like, this is a good example to me of Ilya has finally figured out this is what's important to Shane. So now I'm going to be invested and ask those same questions.
And the point of this trip is to like be together and get to know each other better. And like, that's a huge part of Shane's life. He wants to know about it.
Right. And I love that you could see how happy Shane is that Ilya is asking him this question, because it's like he's just, his face is so lit up to talk about his family
until it's not.
even when Ilya's like making fun of it, teasing him about his dad and everything, but he's still like, he loves, I don't know, I just like see it in his face that he's feeling seen to be asked.
Yeah. He calls his dad normal, which is funny. Like, he's normal, okay? He works for the Treasury Board of Canada. Ilya's like crazy. He says, fuck you. He played hockey for McGill. Whoa. McGill? What the fuck is McGill? Is McGill a town? Another phenomenal quote. This one was the hardest to pick a quote for. I will be doing an Instagram, like, quote, like March Madness type situation. So look out for Instagram stories. We're going to go through all the quotes and decide the best one via vote. So Shane tells him it's a really good school. And then he says, my parents are great. And Ilya says, do they know? And he's like, about you? Of course not. And he says, no, about you. And there's this look that Shane gives him for like a split second before he answers, where he looks uncomfortable and like almost angry. And I mean, things have been going so well, and he is the one who said he wanted to be honest. So I think he wants to shut this conversation down right now, but he pushes past it until he literally can't handle it anymore. And he says no, and Ilya's like, would they not be good about it? And he says, I don't know. I mean, no, they'd be fine. I'm sure they would be, but I don't know. We just haven't talked about it. And Ilya like shrugs and kind of looks like he's going to let it go. But then Shane says, sometimes I think I would have told them already, but...
Oh, so this is my fault.
Yeah. And I'm like, Hudson Williams, I feel like everybody talks about Connor's acting, but Hudson's acting, like this look right here that he does of like, you know, like is so good. And it perfectly conveys everything that he's trying, that like that he wants to say that he can't. And he's like, no, well, I mean, yeah, kind of. And Ilya says, look, I think you can tell your parents you're gay without giving them a list of the guys that you're fucking. And I'm like, I don't think you can, though. I really don't. I'm like, he cannot lie for shit. And once he opens that door up to him, there's like no way he could have kept up the rivalries if they knew he was gay. Like they would have sussed out those looks from a mile away.
Well, and as we see later, they are not shy about asking some of those questions. Like they want to know the details of how this happened. So,
and they're not shocked that he's gay. They're just shocked that it's Ilya.
Yeah.
I also think the best coming out stories are ones that sort of like discern between coming out for another person and coming out for yourself. So I'm glad that they have this conversation. Like the story should be just as much about Shane's like self-discovery as it is about romance. So I'm glad that they make a distinction between the two in this conversation. Like whether Ilya is in the picture or not, Shane should be able to like self-actualize. And I do think it's a little bit unfair for Shane to even imply that it might be Ilya's fault that they haven't had that conversation. I think that's a little bit easy way to get out of it.
I think I felt that way before I read the book. And then after, I kind of understood what he was saying. Because it's not really Ilya's, he's not saying it's Ilya's fault. Like, I wrote down the quote from the book. He says, I just think if I had a normal dating life, I mean, still dating men, but, you know, like, not doing whatever we're doing with you. And so I think, like, what he's saying is, like, had we not been rivals, like, had we not had this extra pressure of everyone thinking that we hate each other, then yeah, I probably would have told them before. But I don't know.
And I don't know if I believe him.
Yeah, I don't know either. It would be interesting to see the trajectory of his life had he come out younger.
Yeah.
Or if the person who helped him to realize it was not somebody in the hockey world too.
Right, yeah.
Like he could have found this out by somebody, with somebody who was not related to his other life, and how would that have looked?
Yeah, his career. Because it is like, it's more than just, oh, we're rivals. It is like, this is our livelihood. And how is it good? How is this thing we're doing going to affect our livelihood? But I do wish that we had a bit more from the books here that kind of just explain where his head is at. Because, like, we get that line. We also get him saying, like, the truth is that Shane thought about Ilya meeting his parents a lot. He was kind of obsessed with the idea. And there's like a paragraph where he like fantasizes about David and Una just shaking Ilya's hand at the NHL awards. That's it. That's his like fantasy, is that they shake hands. And there's a quote that says, "These were the thoughts that kept Shane awake at night. Total and complete madness. His deepest, most closely guarded desire was just to have his parents make contact with the man he'd secretly been fucking for 7 years. Part of him felt that if it happened, something would become clear, something would finally make sense." And it's been 9 years in the show, and it was 7 years in the book. So I thought that was a interesting change. They say multiple times that it's been 7 years when they're at the cottage.
I think another reason why Ilya is curious about this is because Ilya no longer has parents and wants to know more. And if this is like, if Shane is truly his home and family, and they're like auditioning that right now, like it's very obvious that like Ilya would be curious about that. And Shane is still guarded about this in a lot of ways that probably does not seem fair to Ilya, whether that's fair or not.
Yeah, I have a note like at the end of this when he's like, I don't know, just doesn't really matter, and he just like gets up and takes the plates away. I was like, if I was Ilya, my anxiety would be through the roof right now, because Shane was the one that said, I want to be honest about our feelings. But here he is like basically running away. And like now at this point, I'm prepared to like back out of the vulnerability because please don't break my heart again. But then at the same time, this is literally Shane's biggest fear. This is the fear around his parents and coming out, which we'll get, more to later. But I feel like they are kind of like going 0 to 100 right here, because he does want to like open up and be vulnerable with him, but also this is day one and he's bringing up his biggest fear, like his number one nightmare. And so then I wrote down also another one from the book about like his biggest nightmare was that he and Ilya would be caught together somehow, paparazzi or whatever, and then the world would know. But more importantly, his parents would know. They would find out that their son was gay and that their son was being gay with Ilya Rozanov. And I just feel like for Shane, a lot of the like coming out fear is like related to Ilya and not so much being gay, right? Like he's not like, oh, my parents are going to disown me because I'm gay, because I like men. He's like, my parents hate Ilya Rozanov, and how are they going to react to finding out that I love Ilya Rozanov?
I think that along those lines, I think he's afraid about hockey coming out because of Ilya, because it's like that whole culture. But I never really think he's as afraid about his parents disliking Ilya, but just the hockey of it all, because it's so interconnected for the two. But I think actually we've kind of touched on what I wanted to say at the end, now that you've mentioned that doesn't matter. But I think to me, like when I watch this conversation, I'm seeing Ilya he's given up. He has taken that big step that he had to do, right? He has chosen Shane over Russia. And in a way, he's asking all the right questions in this conversation, because he's showing Shane that he knows his parents are important to him and that family is important. And so he wants to connect with Shane on a level that is something that Shane cares about. But I kind of also read it as he's really hoping that he matters enough to Shane that Shane maybe will have told his parents already. Like he's asking them if he's told them. not necessarily even about him, but whether he's gay, because I think he wants to know that he made this huge choice for Shane, and Shane hasn't even told them about himself yet. And so like he's feeling a little, you know, like, oh, you know, maybe I don't matter as much to him as he matters to me, you know? So I think he wants to mean enough to Shane that Shane would have at least told him, his parents, who he is, because he's in a country that it's safe to be that, and Ilya is from a country where it's not safe to be that, and he left that whole life aside just to be, you know, with Shane. So I feel like Ilya is saying he's really like he's kind of disappointed to find out that Shane hasn't told his parents, like for himself, but maybe also a little bit for Shane, because he knows how that feels to be hiding it, you know? And then he's just even more like the way his face falls when he finds out, when Shane says it just, you know, it doesn't matter. Like he's been trying to soothe Shane by, you know, touching him on the thigh and soothing him that you can tell your parents without telling them about me. And then for Shane to then say that it still doesn't matter is like, I think for Ilya, that's just really, really, it guts him to then hear that, and that they're also kind of on a little bit on a different page of where how they're going to feel about their relationship moving forward, which is also just really signs of what's to come.
I was going to say, and if you like romantic tension buildup with one partner not meeting the other halfway, boy, do I have a book for you. And it's called The Long Game.
So, like, yes.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
So true.
So everything that's like happening at this table is sort of like explored in a really extended version in The Long Game, where
exactly,
you know, the joke is like an autistic person and a Slavic man are like constantly like talking past each other or not talking at all, like a masterclass, the Olympics of miscommunication. And you know, of course, like we're destined for a happy ending in this episode, but you know, what happens when you have to like actually participate in the love that you've been looking to find? And that's a little bit like what's happening here. One like criticism I would have about the show too is something that both of you were just talking about, and it's a light criticism, but I feel like if you have not read the books, and this is just like anecdotal from my friends who watched the show but did not read the books, it's really confusing why it's such a big deal that the fact that they were rivals keeps like Shane from telling his family, and that like that's like an extra hurdle that they have to go through. And I don't know that the show alone, and I guess I can't really say because I watched the show after having read the books. I don't think like the show alone has like given the viewer enough context about like why that is such a big deal. So I'm curious, Ashley, like how you felt as somebody who was like straddling sort of like both media at the same time.
The scene definitely made me, I was disappointed in Shane the first time around, because I was like, come on, man, like you're the one who said like we're gonna be open, and now here you are running away. And it was something that I really had to like sit with before I kind of built that empathy back up for him in that moment. But I will say also, last night I was just talking to someone about the difference between the rivalry in the show and the book, because it's way more intense in the book. You know, like I get the feeling it's like
personal Shane, in the book. In the show, it's a lot more like media and you know, like it's more for show. It's not. There's not the same personal like. I really like, don't like this guy.
The show it's a made up rivalry in the show, right? They never once. Like, they never disliked each other. They don't talk shit about each other unless it's face to face, right? It's like banter. But, like, it's always, like, Hayden or Yuna or, you know, somebody else that's saying, like, oh, well, you hate him, right? You hate him. Like, and all they had to do to make the rivalry real was not deny it, right? So, like...
Right.
It's like this non-existent thing that has kind of been built up around them. Yeah,
like, and... I don't know what else they could have done in the show with the amount of time that they had. And this is probably like a strategic choice that they made. Like, but, you know, reading the books, you find out that like there's a lot of marketing that is built on their relationship that Shane doesn't want to explode. The NHL itself, like, concentrates so much on the two of them that it would make no sense. And I can't even think of like a real world analogy. Like I don't know, like in the 80s, you find out that like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson or something are actually like fucking, right? Like I guess that would be like something crazy. I can't think of anything modern like off the top of my head about it, but I don't know that like that actually comes across as well as it can. So yeah, my friends that had watched it and were like, I don't understand why he just can't like come out. Like it's homophobia should be a bigger deal than the rivalry. But in the books, it feels like they're on par with one another, and you don't get that just from watching.
Yeah, I would agree. Then we go to the fire pit outside. Shane has built a fire. He's like, nice, right? And Ilya says, so we just sit here and look at it? And he's like, yeah, we just sit here and look at it. And he says, Canada is fun. So good. And his phone buzzes and he like lights up all giggly laughing at it. And when he says like it was just Rose, because Ilya's giving him like massive side eye, he's not happy. I was like, I want to know what she texted. You know, it was something sassy, like, is he there yet? Have you fucked in every single room? Like I can just hear her asking to after the like, so how's jerking off going when he was with his parents? Like he may not tell her it's Ilya, but like she knows he has a man, you know?
She knows.
And so, like, I would love to see their text thread.
I think he has told her. I know that, like, there's no evidence to that, but I just have to believe. Like, I wish that the show used, like, Rose a little bit more, even just, like, social media and texts the same way, because to know Shane, you need to see him, like, queening out with somebody.
Right.
And that's where that outlet was for him. And I do like that it makes Ilya jealous still.
Yeah. Really, really jealous.
I know. I love his jealous face. It's great.
He kills it. He kills it. The way that his eyebrows are like shaped so differently.
Yeah.
Like Connor can
bisexual, famous ladies man Ilya jealous.
Yes.
Of like two failed sexual interactions with a woman for Shane.
Glaring at him. Ilya, I'm gay. Yeah, not so gay you can't fuck Rose Landry.
No, actually that gay that I couldn't fuck Rose Landry.
Literally.
Yes. Literally that.
The one time I was semi-successful, I was thinking about you.
I love that how he wants all the details too. He's like, please tell me how she did not do it for you. Yeah. So I can gloat about all the ways I know what you want.
Exactly. She's like, I'm not going into details. And then we get the loon sound and he whips his head around and says, what the fuck was that? Another amazing line delivery. And then we get the, it was a loon. A what? A loon. It's a bird. Yeah, well, it sounds like a fucking wolf. Well, it's a bird, trust me. And it does it again. And he's like, what kind of bird makes a noise like that? And he's like, a loon. And Ilya does this like dismissive hand wave, like, shut up. I have to focus on the wolf that's coming to get us. His stupid Canadian wolf bird.
This is where I have to give a shout out to my bestie from law school who may listen to this. And she is from New England and felt very seen by loon representation and has recently sent me pictures from her mother's house of like towels with loons on them and like wooden loons around the house. And she reminded me that once I went skiing in New Hampshire on Loon Mountain. So like it is a Canadian wolf bird, and of course like their national bird at that. But I think that there are some New Englanders out there with some real loon love that felt very seen by this representation. So I've never heard a loon to my knowledge. I would like to, but I'm glad that like fan favorite bird made an appearance here. It would have been malpractice for Jacob not to include these loons.
Yeah. This is where I did my loon research and I found out that, it was loon.org. That's correct. Loon.org that I went through.
You literally went down a loon rabbit hole.
Down a loon rabbit hole. And I was listening to all the different types of loon calls and reading about them and the differences. And so this specific one is called a tremolo, which is usually a response to perceived threats to warn other loons to stay away from the area. So Shane is literally telling the other loons to like, go away, you're scaring my boyfriend, which is adorable. But also the regular loon call that we hear, this is what, because I have seen people talking about the protective one, right? But I've not seen anybody talk about the regular wail. It's the most common for long distance communication between mated pairs of loons, which is actually so fucking cute because until now, these two have been long distance mates and now they're together and this like, hey, where you at? I'm over here. It's like, what is freaking them out?
Yeah.
So cute. So thank you, loon.org, for all of the information that I got there. And Ilya is like, so you speak bird now? And he's like fluent. He's like, I hate you. No, you don't. And their like little tender look that they have there is so cute at the end. And we cut to like later the same night. And Ilya is laid down with his head in Shane's lap. Shane's like running his fingers through Ilya's hair, which is like fluffing it up. And this is my favorite Ilya hair of the whole thing. There's this whole thing with Ilya's hair and the storytelling told through Ilya's hair throughout this show, and how like when he's like with his dad and when he's trying to be like perfect and has all that pressure on him, he's like very slicked back and tight and kempt, and then when he, you know, starts to be alone with Shane, it gets looser and looser, and then here at the cottage where he's like fully being open and vulnerable, he's so full fluff, and it's so good. I also have to think this is probably a comfort position for him because we see him in Svetlana's lap before, and I hate to say it, but I feel like he probably laid in his mom's lap like this when he was young, and it makes him feel safe and loved.
It's a really safe position to lay in with somebody you care about and you want to have a hard conversation with without having to look in their face, but still feel the comfort of their body. You know, like if you still, you need to feel protected, but also it's a little easier to be vulnerable when you don't have to look them right in the face.
For sure. Yeah. And in the books, it's Shane that's laying in Ilya's lap. It's Shane laying
in Ilya's lap.
I think this makes much more sense to me.
Me too. It makes me feel it fits this conversation better.
Yeah.
For it to be Ilya being the one in his lap.
Right. So he asks, have you talked to your brother lately? And he's like, no. He like just kind of shakes his head and makes it And you can see he's also holding himself in this moment and like self-soothing by like rubbing his own shoulder. And Shane is like, is that a good thing? And he's like, probably, I don't know. And Shane says, I'm sorry about your family. Even if they suck, you must miss them. And he says, my mother didn't suck. She was great. And Shane asks how she died. And he says, by accident. She accidentally swallowed a whole bottle of pills. And when I watched this the first time, I was like, that was so jarring for me.
Yeah. That needs some book context too, honestly.
Yeah.
It helps. Yeah.
But also, even so, like, there was a woman on Slayerfest's Cottage episode, Stacy, and she brought up something that just made so much sense to me. Like, in the book, we hear, you know, we get him saying, like, this, his dad does refer to it as an accident. And, like, this is, you know. But she's, like, given everything we know about his father and his brother, this specific line delivery where it's like a joke almost, like it was a punchline, is probably exactly how his dad has said it a million times over the years.
Totally.
With, like, condescension and judgment. And so that was, like, just instinct for him to say that. And so then later when he's like, after he says, you know, how old were you? 12, I found her. And there's like a moment of silence where Shane is processing it, but Ilya is also processing like this conversation. And then I feel like he has, like, this is not home. This is not his family, right? He has the ability to change that narrative and share with Shane his perception of his mom and how she truly was, and not this like weird fucked up perception that his dad has like pushed off onto her all of these years. And so that's when he says, like, I don't want you to think she was weak.
What's really interesting about this line is there's this woman on TikTok. I'd have to send you the link to her page, but she's a Russian woman who lived in Russia at the time, was really involved in a lot of push back against the government, and she's a queer woman, and I think she's in the States at Harvard studying now, but she does a lot of TikToks about the history and the background of all of this. And this is actually one of the things she talks about, is that suicide among women, which we would, like as Westerners, we would assume that suicide among women in those situations would be really high, but actually it's significantly higher among men there. Women have this very strong feeling of having to stay and stick around for their kids, to protect their kids among all of this. And so the fact that Ilya's mom did die this way is actually even more significant than it might be to us, because it was actually very rare. And that's probably another reason why his dad, who
feels that way,
would act like this about it, because he probably also was like, even though we know he was a terrible person, it also still probably affected him in a way that is different than it would be to a Westerner for, their wife to die, just because it was a different culture and a different thing for it to happen like this. So it's interesting, because I think until I watched this woman's whole series of videos, I felt like it's really easy to watch a lot of how Ilya feels through a Western perspective without understanding like actually what his actual background is, no matter how much of it is human experience that everybody has, no matter where you're raised. There's still an element of how you feel and believe about the world and see the world that is just part of your upbringing, and that you can't change in your culture. And so it's really impactful to realize then how much pain she must have been in, like how serious it had to have been for her to go against that culture, and to know that she was then leaving her children in such a way that would have affected them beyond the loss of her, but in that culture as well, like what that would have meant. So it's kind of even more disheartening in a way to realize what he's going through. And I do really appreciate in this scene that Ilya not only hears Shane's questions and responds just to what he says, but he's finally ready to share. So he actually offers information that Shane hasn't asked for.
Yeah.
And I think that's like really appropriate to a way of showing how their relationship has progressed, because before he just shut down Shane's questions about his family. He did not want to go there, but that he trusts him now. And like Shane is his family. He's left that other family. So he's ready to make this. And I think both of them act this scene so well. All of Hudson's tiny little facial reactions about it, the way he twitches or sighs or, shakes his head just a tiny bit, or, like he's processing so much. I love all of the way the two of them are communicating the little step for the big step forward, really, that this is for their relationship, but just with all these little touches that have nothing to do with sex anymore.
Right.
Which is what most of their touch has always been. And so now these are just subtle, rubbing his shoulder, touching his hand. Shane, Ilya's one of his hands is resting on Shane's leg where he's laying his head down on it, so like they're communicating beyond the way that they were communicating, and now communicating deeper.
Yeah. And then I start to sob as he's like, Shane says, I don't. And Ilya says, she wasn't. She was so funny and beautiful. And she was so sad. And my dad was so hard on her. And then a loon freaking interrupts him. And I was like, ugh, this fucking loon. He really needed to like open up and get all this off his chest. And did you not hear Shane's warning? Fuck off.
And he's also like describing himself there too.
Yes.
And, like his potential to be funny and beautiful and wonderful, but so all sad. Of that was sort of like stifled by how oppressive his father was, which again, like not to be a broken record, like is more evident in the book than it is on TV. Like the context of like how bad his dad actually was. I think another like contextually fun thing about this scene is that I guess we have found out through social media basically that this is the last scene that they filmed.
Yeah.
Like this was the wrap-up scene where afterwards the two main actors were extremely emotional afterwards. And I think it was the first video we've seen where Hudson shuts the fuck up. So it's like, it's very significant that, that all of this is sort of happening with their own like real life emotional, like mapping onto it in the background. I think it was interesting watching that again for the first time, knowing that like they're wrapping up there this morning.
I was thinking about that too when I was watching. I was like, it made me want to start crying. I wasn't even involved.
and knowing that they had filmed this part all at the same time, right? Like a lot of the other parts of the show have been blocked, like mixed up in the timeline. But that this, obviously, because they had the place for that, however much time they had to film it, it was all done at the same time. And there's other little things that you can see about them, like physically, that tell you like it all happened at the same time. So this being that last scene after everything else that they filmed in this moment is just really touching.
I know. And I was going back and forth between episode 6 and episodes 1 and 2 to look at all the parallels, and I was like, God, just shout out to the makeup team again, because they look so fucking young in that those first couple of episodes, and it's like bananas, the magic of makeup. Shane asks, do you want to go inside? And we get this close-up of Ilya's face as he like gets comfortable again. He says no. And the hand that he's been like self-soothing with on his shoulder, Shane like reaches up and puts his hand there, and they're like linking fingers and touching. So now like Shane is kind of doing the soothing at this point. But Ilya just looks so content and sleepy and relaxed and obviously sad, but it's just, this is such in the lighting, like it's just such a beautiful scene with the fire. But there's just to add some levity to it, there's a line from the book where Ilya says, he says, Ilya wanted to grab the embers from the fire and smash them into his own eyes because he could not bear to look at this adorable, crinkled, happy face. And I said, that's me reading and watching this. I just want to burn my eyes out.
I also love that there's like obviously he starts off by joking about not wanting to sit by the fire, like, so we just sit here and we look at it, and then he doesn't want to leave. And it's like the going inside, we know that means going inside means we're going to have sex before we go to bed, right? And Ilya, normally that is obviously often what they want, and I think probably that happens eventually because of the way they wake up. But like, I love that he's saying like, as much as he wants that and that how important that part is, like right now, that's not what he wants. He just wants to maintain this connection,
closeness, emotional closeness. For sure. Okay, the next scene is short, but I have a lot of notes about it. We cut to them asleep. Ilya's laying on his back and Shane is like cuddled up on his chest. And the last time, and the only other time that they slept together, Ilya was like spooning Shane and like clinging to him. And that was in Ilya's house after he asked Shane to stay. So it's interesting that in this scene, after Shane asks him to stay with him, he's laying fully open and accepting the Shane cuddles. But, Shane's going to have to come get him. He's not offering him up, And in contrast to that scene, Shane wakes up and he looks at Ilya. And when Ilya opens his eyes, he like smiles and maintains eye contact and says good morning, versus Ilya laying there staring at Shane. And when Shane wakes up, he like pretends that he was asleep and is like, oh, yeah, and like is not being vulnerable. And then I have a note about the lighting that's going to come back later when we see almost this exact same position, but the light is like coming in across their faces. And it's at just the right angle to be hitting Ilya's eyes. And Shane is fully in shadow because he's like turned away from the light. And he like, when he looks down at Shane after he says, good morning, I like you. He has one eye in the shadow and one eye in the light. And I'm going to have more to say about that later. Just want to point it out.
It's a half truth. It's like a half truth. I also love that it's so close that, like we were talking about the filming this all at once. Like, I notice little things like that when I watch shows, like little things about them. And so like I notice, and it sounds so nitpicky, and I'm not like being silly. I'm not like being annoyed, because I actually appreciate that you can see it, because men at all ages, but people at that age still have them. But like that Connor has like a little zit on the side of his on the side of his lip, and you can see it all throughout this cottage episode, which I think is super important, because sometimes they have it one season and then they don't have it the same day in the next scene, and it kind of, it's like one of those weird continuity things that for my brain get annoyed with it. Like, for example, Joe's chin zit in Heartstopper. Like, I see it how it's blocked in at the different times it was filmed. So I appreciate, though, that like they keep stuff like that, like the realism of these are just real people, and like we don't need to see people looking perfect all the time, because that's not real life.
That was one thing that we really liked about season 1 of Heartstopper, was that they had they looked like teenagers, right? And like I feel like they put more makeup on them in seasons 2 and 3, and we lose that, but it's really really cool and to watch season 1 of Heartstopper and see them with zits,
actually be teenagers with zits.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's something we don't want to lose from this either. That they look like beat up hockey players sometimes, and on Slayer Fest we talked about the stretch marks and how their bodies are amazing, but somehow like also attainable. And I think because they were actors we did not know about, they weren't just like we knew that they weren't coming from the set of like a human growth hormone movie like the Marvel universe. So like I do hope that aesthetic, like you're talking about, is purposeful and not just because they didn't have enough time to do makeup, but also like they're letting them be human beings with natural lighting and stuff like that. I think that's something that made another one of the many things that made the series special.
Yeah, we need more of that in media, like to see just real people being real people, and not hiding the realness of life. I think that's one thing I didn't mention it when we were at that part, but like the way Connor eats on the show too, like because it like how he like
cleans out,
like he cleans out his teeth, how he like clenches like his jaw open for his lips to move over.
He's actually eating instead of
he's actually eating,
but he's also not like hiding that. He's not hiding that from the way he is acting in the show too. Like sometimes you see them eating and then they don't move their mouths the way we normally would, even when we're actually eating. And I like that there's so much of that realism. It makes you feel as a viewer like we're really there.
And he's a generally ravenous person, and that's how that like it's just supposed to come across. On the one hand I love that, on the other hand I do think people who chew with their mouth open should be sent to Guantanamo. But I do like accept that on this show.
I have misophonia, so it's like it's a big thing. Big thing for me, mouth open chewing.
Well, and even that, he says not even so much the mouth open chewing, but just the movements of his mouth are accurate for how we feel, especially after we're actually done chewing. Like that's I think more what I noticed. Like the moving his to clean out his teeth. Like that's like natural and normal. That's what it would really be like if you were having a conversation with somebody at a meal.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we get this like very quick transition scene of like the lake and the sun like shimmering, and it's just really pretty. I have no notes. I just it's pretty.
And the loon calls in that scene too.
Yes. And then we get to a great scene where they're on the couch with game controllers, and Shane is like, "You can't pick Montreal," and Ilya's like, "Yes, I can. I've always wondered what it would be like to be a Metro. Historically, they're the best team in sport." And Shane's like, "Better than the fucking Yankees." And Ilya's like, "Oh, I know." And so then Shane decides, "Well, I'm going to be Boston." And Ilya's like, "Good choice." And I love the like, they would banter like this. Like, "I'm going to fucking kill you." And he's like, "I am you." And he's like, "No, you're not anything." And he like grabs the game. He's like, "I'm on the cover of the fucking game." This is so good. And I saw that Peter like brought in someone who does video game soundtracks to do the theme for this because they wanted it to be right. So the menu music that we're hearing is like very specifically made to sound like a hockey game or a sports game.
I also can't watch this scene without seeing that meme or some sort that I saw of Hudson's face looking like some kind of happy frog. Have you seen any of you seen that? Where it's like, I'd have to send it to you if I can find it again, but it's just like the way he's smiling is so funny. It's just so perfect how he's like so chill and like childlike excited to do this thing with Ilya. And I love that they show that part too, because everything else is serious. Like they're, I love that we get to see them do like what normal, friends, boyfriends, what, would be doing. You're not just sitting around and then fucking all the time, that's part of it too. But like, that doesn't fill 24 hours a day.
Right.
So,
right. It's physiologically impossible. You're going to have to at some point. Like you just are. Yeah, that's how the male body is built. So.
Yeah. So Shane's phone rings and he's like, fuck, it's Hayden. And this look that Ilya gives him, like, are you fucking kidding me? And he's like, he just had a baby and I haven't talked to him in weeks. And my note just says, excuse me, Hayden did not have a baby. Bonnie McMurray had a baby for him. Let's get that right. And Ilya like groans and like throws the controller down and Shane's like, you're a baby, and answers the phone. And so I'm not going to read all of Shane's babbles to Hayden because it's really none of it makes any sense. I would love to know if any of that was scripted or if they were just like, go for it. Because like the beginning is similar to the book, but then it just turns into like straight up babbles at the end, which I guess in the book we don't really hear because it's more from Ilya's perspective in the book.
I think it might have been scripted because I saw something about when they were rehearsing it in their... They were talking about when when Hudson was rehearsing the lines and how they talked about the way they were gonna like improv a lot of this. And they were talking about how they did that in the morning before, like while they were getting their makeup done before. I can't remember what interview I heard it in, but I heard something. So I think it is scripted, but it's also just funny how awkward Shane is on the phone. Like just the lines he says, like, where he's like, and Amber, like it is also just so very like, no offense to the men out there, but like how men are when they're trying to talk about a baby being born, it's like they don't know anything. They don't care how big it was, how everything, they don't care everything about that. It's just different. Yeah.
It just shows you how like even gay men sort of have to code switch to like talk to a straight man. Honestly, sometimes like I'm sure that there's a version of Shane who would care about different things, but understanding like what Hayden can receive is probably, and Shane's also, as we're about to talk about, like distracted, and so like that's those little utterances. I imagine that they have insanely boring, stilted conversations all the time, where Shane is just like nodding and saying, "Oh yeah, okay, wow." Yeah, so that felt real.
Oh, it did, very real.
Like,
and also the fact that this is Hayden's like 30th child, so he's also like, what do I even say at this point? And we've had these conversations over and over and over again
already. Yeah, like we know what to say.
Yeah. To be fair, my very straight husband would be the same if it was in that situation. His wording would be exactly the same. So
I love the mischief that washes over Ilya's face immediately, and his like hands where he's like tosses it up and like puts it over, and he's like do like walks up his thighs, and Shane is looking at him. I love
chin
like
on his thigh. Yeah,
I love that when he like walks up and Shane's on the phone. And he's like, how is she? And he like smacks his hand away, and then Ilya's like, and that just like spurs him on even more. So then he like doubles down.
Yeah. Right after Shane was like, not now, later. Meanwhile, let me move into a better position for you to do this to me. Like,
Right.
he could have stepped, if he really meant it, he could have stepped away, gotten up from into a totally different position, held a pillow in front of himself. You know, he did really want it. It was not a...
He did.
There's a lot of discourse about this and how, like, people feel like it's crossing a line, and I'm like, but he wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wanted it. If he didn't want it, he would have said, Ilya, I'm being serious, and, like, removed himself from the situation. But because he, like, first of all, he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I think you know. And he's like, please stop. And he's like, I don't think that's what you want. And he says, I'll make you a deal. And I saw someone say that I'll make you a deal is Ilya's, I have an idea. And I thought that was funny. But he says, like, I won't touch you, but if you get hard, and he's like, I won't get hard. And he's like, okay, so no problem then. And he's like, Ilya. And he's like, Shane. And the way that he says, like, Ilya is almost like a way to challenge him back.
It's a challenge. Yeah. It's like a competition between them.
Exactly.
Like, can Ilya make him get hard? Can Shane make himself not get hard? Like,
exactly.
Who's going to win this competition? And Ilya knows from the beginning he's going to win.
Yeah. And then, like you said, he sits up on the back of the couch with his legs spread even further, giving Ilya more access.
So here's where I'm going to be a hater, maybe for the first time. I think on a show that was, like, so outstanding about realistic sex and the way that they portrayed it, this was, like, the one big fail. That, like, it's the only one where you could just tell that, like, oh, this is completely fake. Like, nothing real is happening here, the way that it was filmed. And, like, it's not disappointing because we had, like, a bounty of it beforehand, but you could tell that, like, Shane's pants are, like, still on all the way. Like, it just feels sloppy in a way that none of the other sex scenes actually felt. I think the lead up to it with Ilya being cute and mischievous is great. But I think that this, I don't know, it's like the one failure, I think, of the sex team to, like, get that across to us.
I've seen a lot of people say that. This is probably TMI.
I was about ready to say,
Here we go.
I'm ready to say I have accomplished this in a similar position in a car that was driving.
Yeah,
so.
I'm like, I've done a lot of sloppy toppy, and I feel like, you know, the shorts don't have to be all the way off to accomplish what he's accomplishing.
They're on in such a way that you could tell that, like, nothing is out, I think. If you're doing a close read of the scene, honestly. Like, and I think that people are only doing a close read of the scene because every other sex scene has been so, like, well done and so, you know,
there is a part
accurate.
where Connor's head moves and you can see that his pants are actually still on more. And so I see what you're saying in what we see. They did kind of miss that line.
Yeah.
But I do think without removing the shorts or even pulling them further down on the hips, you can accomplish this like this.
It also depends on, like, how big Shane is, what kind of button these shorts have, button zipper situation. There's a lot of factors we don't know.
Yes. No, I understand and am experienced in the ways that this can happen, and I fully support the emotional resonance of, like, mischief, like, where finally, like, in a world where, you know, Ilya has had to compete for Shane's attention from hockey and Hayden and stuff like that. Like, this is a clever way to do it. I just think that, like, from a show that, like, did so much with so little and had such great sex scenes, this is one where there's, like, some plausible deniability around the accuracy of it, and that was disappointing to see.
That's kind of how I felt about the Scott and Kip's first time when Scott's going down on Kip. I'm like, you can tell that he's, like, not really doing it. And, like, not that they're doing it themselves in the other scenes either, but it looks more realistic.
And we talked about this a little bit on Slayer Fest too. Like, there's not a show that we can really compare this to. So like, the show that we compare it to is, like, a fake one that is made in America that is much worse and is 14 episodes. So we have, like, such a high standard of what we're expecting from Heated Rivalry in terms of sex scenes, where, like, we know that there would be a sloppy one in America where you could tell that like nothing was actually happening. It was just like
Right.
insert like overtures and representation of blowjob here.
Right.
And it's better than like an American series would have done, but it's just like the worst of the sex scenes.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I would definitely agree to classify it. It is in the sense of like moving the story along or of anything like that. It definitely is. It wouldn't be on the top of my ranking. It'd barely be of them. It would also be on the bottom of my ranking, except for the fact I do find some of the funny, like the fact that how much of that was like the improv of the slapping and the fingers in the mouth and stuff that just makes me kind of giggle about it, like being the first sort of maybe playful one that they had. And so in that way, it moves the story along a little bit. But also, that boy really trusts his mute button because
I kept thinking because I
can tell you
hadn't...
how many fics have been written about a failed mute button in that scene. Because
I kept waiting for it because obviously I hadn't read this scene yet, and so like especially when he comes, I was like, "There's no way!" Like he did not hit this Hayden is going to hear. That's going to be like, this is it. This is going to be what happens. So I was pleasantly surprised that he managed to get it. But I love all of the like reactors, the like TikTok reactors that are acting it out like from Hayden's perspective. Being like, what is happening, bud? Like on the other end, because like he is like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Like even when he's on the phone and I'm like, bro. But if that was me, I would be like, I gotta go. You can call me later. I don't know what you're doing, but I don't need to hear it. And I did love like the like kind of as he gets closer and closer to coming, the way that his responses become more panicky. Like he's like, cool, yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but fuck, sorry.
There.
So good. And yeah, when Ilya puts his fingers in his mouth, I'm like, he's already having trouble talking. Now you're putting your fingers in his mouth. The smacks are
smacking his face. That's fun.
I love that the intimacy coordinator had to like turn around and walk away when he smacked him the first time.
Yeah.
But so when this is one thing that I noticed the first time. And I feel like for me personally, I don't pick up on a lot of like little things the first time around, but I had noticed that in the past, every time that Ilya is going down on Shane, like obviously the first time he would be like, no, get off. Like I can't hold it. But like, even so in later scenes, except for that like quick shower scene that we see, because we don't really get to see him coming in that one. But the other times he puts pressure on Ilya, like, oh, every time. Like, no. But this time, he pulls him down closer and goes deeper in his mouth to come. And I'm like, okay, so things have changed so much that he is no longer pulling Ilya off of him.
Well, he's no longer, I mean, we know from the books, he struggles with the whole concept of coming in Ilya's mouth or of Ilya coming in his mouth. So, like, it's just another further way of showing like he has lost that that fear of this barrier
or like anxiety around it. Yeah. And I love that he like tucks himself back in and Ilya like rolls over onto the couch and he's like, sorry man, I just I have to run, someone's at the door. And Ilya just like starts laughing and I'm like, he can hear you
because he starts to say, if you listen to it really carefully, he starts to say I just had sex, but then catches himself.
I see people say that, but I don't hear it.
No, I hear it because
I don't think that he says that.
That's exactly when Connor starts to laugh, or which Ilya starts to laugh. As soon as he says that part of it, he says, I just had, and then, I don't
hear had. He says, I just, I have to run.
Okay, we can agree to disagree. Yeah. That's okay.
There's about 8 different lines that we're like, that we disagree about.
Yep.
But I also love that when Ilya starts to laugh, Shane like pushes him down with his foot. He like puts his foot on his chest and pushes him down to like shut him up, which is cute.
Yeah, because he doesn't want him to be here that it's a guy laughing in the room.
He doesn't want him to know anybody's with him.
Yeah.
he makes the excuse that it's Amazon and that he'll call him later and says, all right, love you, man. And then he jumps on to Ilya and is like, why was that so hot? And he says, because you like to be bad. And Shane laughs for a second, but then it hits him kind of like what he said, and he immediately softens. And he takes Ilya's hand in his face and he says, hey, that's not what this is, you and me. Maybe it was at first, but not now, and not for a long time. And as he's saying that, you see Ilya kind of like swallow, like he licks his lips and like swallows. And then you kind of see the mischief kick back in. He's like, so you love Hayden? And he rolls off. And I love the like slappy thing that he does on his thighs when he sits back up, because to me, that's pure Connor. Like, that's not, that's just Connor being Connor that made it into the show.
Yeah.
I love that reassurance that he gives. I love that he's reassuring him. Like, it isn't just about sex for me anymore.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because in the book he says,
he knows
like,
that's what Ilya needs to hear.
Yeah, in the book he is spiraling about it a little bit after he says it, and he's like, it must have shown all over my face, because then Shane says that, and so it's like nice that they can read each other in that way. So then they're like playing soccer in the front yard, which is adorable. I love that we see them playing video games and like playing outside and like hanging out by the fire. It's just like they give us everything we've wanted all season. And Ilya says, so I was thinking I'm a free agent next season. And he's like, oh yeah? You wouldn't re-sign with Boston? And he just kind of like makes a noise of non-commitment. And he's like, then where? And he's like, I don't know, maybe a Canadian team. And Shane kind of like pauses for a second there, like, nope, that fried my brain. And Ilya's like, not Montreal. Like, don't even think about it. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I know. And he's like, but I would love to not have a Russian passport. And I love the little detail of, as they're kicking the ball around in this scene, they knock over the like little, like, I don't know if it's a lamp or just like a little ornament that's in between the two chairs. And Ilya ignores it, but Shane's like, no, and like walks over and puts it back in its perfect little place before they continue, which is so nice.
The conversation about the passports is a little weird to me, though, because I'm not really sure that we're like playing on a Canadian team doesn't give you a different passport. Like,
well, it would be
you
a
still
visa,
have
right?
the passport. It's a visa. It's just not a passport. So it's
sort of like,
different.
It's more from the books again, where they like describe the process a little bit more in depth. Where like once you're in Canada for a bit, you can apply for citizenship, and they're not applying in America for I think a number of different reasons. But like I do like that it shows them actually being competitive while they're playing as well. Like neither of them likes to let the other one win, which I think is nice.
Which is a question you will be bringing up later.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I also like, this is like a weird little difference from the books as well, because in the books, Ilya takes this opportunity to bring up the rivalry and saying if he played for a team in the West, then it could help like the rivalry fade out, versus Shane being like, we can like change the narrative or whatever he says. But like this part right here in the book is where Ilya brings it up, and that's what spurs Shane on to even think of the Ottawa plan, versus in the show it's like all Shane's little concocted idea in his brain.
Well, and because in the book he concocts that idea because Ilya's idea of playing for a Western one means they see each other only twice a year,
right?
And that's just not acceptable to them. Like we can't go backwards from where we are.
Right.
And I kind of like, I also do like that in the book it shows it as a little bit more like it's a couple of day process.
Yeah, it's a gradual.
This conversation is happening over the course of a few days. Obviously, I understand why you can't tell that story a story in that way on a 1 hour of TV. But
right,
I think they did really it did really well with what they had for sure. But I do like that Ilya also is the one partially scheming here. It's not just Shane's ideas.
Right. So then we cut to the living room. They're both on the couch. They're sitting foot to foot, which is adorable. And this is when Ilya has on the flannel that Shane was wearing. And they're just kind of like sit in uncomfortable silence, which is hard to do unless you're really comfortable with the person. So it's nice that we've gone from when they first got to the cottage and Shane like couldn't shut up trying to fill the silence, and now they're just sitting here in silence, respectively on their phones scrolling. And Ilya says, I could marry Svetlana. And Shane looks up at him, and you know that saying, if looks could kill? Like, Ilya would not have survived this scene. He says, she's American, would be easy citizenship. And I'm like, is she American? Like, I need more of the Svetlana backstory in the show, because is it like a dual citizenship kind of thing? Do we think she was born in the States but grew up in Russia? Because they obviously have childhood, like his dad says, you know, she's been dragging you around since they were kids. Like, and
it might just be a plot device that wasn't really very well thought out to throw that in there. That because unless she has gotten citizenship from living there long enough herself.
Right.
But that's also not very easy in the States. Like he says, getting that line about it would be easy citizenship, but that is not true. It is never easy to become a citizen of the United States, even if you're a lot easier
by marriage, though.
But even if you are married, of course, but even if you are married, it is a years long process, and it's like verifying that you're actually married for married purposes, not just to get like it's not nearly as easy as they make it sound.
Yeah. He's like, she would do it. Her father is Sergei Vitrov. And he's like, yeah, you've told me.
I think this might be my favorite scene in the episode for a lot of different reasons. I know that we're like, I do like how serious Shane is about to get when we're talking, but I like that it's a sort of mirror of the time that they met in the gym in the first episode when they're sitting foot to foot. And one subtle way that they show that is that there's, again, just one receptacle for water in between them on the table, just like they had to pass the bottle back and forth. But this time they're on different sides, and there's different like power plays that are happening. And at the end, it's Shane who's able to like dictate what the rules are going forward. And in the beginning, that first episode, it was Ilya who did that. So I liked that mirror aspect about this particular scene a lot. And it's the one that I've gone back to watch the most, I think, where I like that Shane takes control and says at the end, don't marry Svetlana, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
And of course that means that that's all that Shane is going to think about going forward. And and Ilya kind of doesn't, and just trusts that something is going to be figured out. But I like that it actually gave Shane a chance to take some agency. And in the past scenes that we've discussed, Shane's actions have left Ilya wanting and maybe thinking the worst. And this is the first time I think that we see Shane is actually taking this very seriously.
That's a really good point. As soon as you said it mirrored a scene, I was thinking you were about to say episode 4 on the couch when the last time they talk about Svetlana. So my mind never went to the one in episode 1, but that's a really good point. But also then it also does mirror the one in episode 4. And in my mind, Shane's mind is just racing, that he's essentially having a new conversation on a couch with Ilya about Svetlana. And he's just like, in my mind, he's just terrified of what if it happens like what happened last time. Like, but in this way, Ilya does such a good job telling him, no, wait a minute. It's not that I want her. It is you that I only want, which I know you're going to probably say those lines because those are great lines. So
yeah, these are great.
But I love that it contrasts them sitting miles away on the couch like they were at that point, but this time they're touching. So they're not just talking about these things with no connection between themselves. So yeah.
Right. He's like, she would help me, and he takes like a long pause, and this is when he brings it back around. He's like, but she is, I don't know, is she someone that you would want to marry? And he says, we're friends, we would be fine, and it would be for the passport. And he's like, okay, but you like women, right? So you could find someone that you wanted to marry for real and still get the passport. And he says, maybe, but, and I love in this moment too, he puts the phone down and gives Shane his full attention. He says, I have this problem. And Shane's like, what's the problem? And he says,
he's like, how can I fix it?
Yeah. I also like that this is kind of like a little bit of payback for the Rose text. He's like, I'm gonna make this hurt a little bit as I talk about it. But it is very much like you said, like the episode 4, they're about to talk about all the women that that are like the hot, beautiful women or whatever.
And I like that Shane is actually kind of concerned about Ilya. Like, it to me, it shows that how much she loves him. That in his mind, he's like, but you could marry a woman that you love. Like, why would, like, he in his mind, he's like, but you should marry somebody you love if you want to do that.
Right.
Like, he doesn't want him to just settle for that. And I think that shows that he actually, it's like a way of showing that he loves him, you know?
For sure.
But he has this problem.
Yeah. Yeah. He says, everywhere I go, I'm surrounded by beautiful women, and they love me. And she says, sounds rough. And he's just like getting more and more angry black cat sitting on this couch. And he says, yes, it is. Listen. And the women are so sexy and fun, but I'm always thinking about this slow fucking hockey player with beautiful freckles. And Shane like breaks out into a smile, and Ilya's like, and a weak backhand. And he's like, a weak backhand? Yes, very weak. And he's so boring, and he drives a terrible car. It's a normal car. And then he delivers the killer. I'm always wishing that these women were him. It's a terrible problem, huh? And then Shane takes a long pause, and we see him like take a hard swallow, and he says, do you want that problem to go away? And I love the line in the book where he's like, I have to ask it because I need to hear it. And he says, I do not ever want that problem to ever go away. And I'm like, yeah, hit him with the double ever.
Yep. Two
This
evers.
is where I die. This is where I jump off the cliff, because that's a line that I it's just killer.
I feel like I probably have about 17 notes throughout this episode that all just say, I'm going to jump off a cliff. Just over and over and over again. But that's when he says, don't marry Svetlana. Just don't. I know it wouldn't be for love or whatever, but just don't. We can figure something else out, okay? And the way that his voice breaks in the middle of something kills me every time. And then when Ilya says okay, and they do the little like toe taps of comfort to each other, that's where in this scene I said, and I jump off the cliff again. I'm out of here. And we cut to the bedroom, and Shane is like sitting up in the dark while Ilya sleeps, and you can tell he's just been up this whole night. And he reaches over and he turns on the lamp, and he like shakes him awake. He's like, I have another idea. And he's like, oh, what idea? What's happening? Like, what time is it, sir? And he's like, what if you play in Ottawa? And he's like, Ottawa is the same division as Boston. We're still rivals. And he says, okay, but listen, first off, super close by. Second, Ottawa needs a star center, and they're nowhere near their cap, so they can definitely afford you. And then maybe we could start to change the narrative a bit. He's like, I don't know these words, my guy. I just woke up. Can you please make it a little simpler? And Shane's like, okay, so Boston and Montreal, that's intense. Everyone knows. But Montreal and Ottawa, not so much. He says, look, a lot of guys have friends on other teams, and we're not rookies anymore. There are younger guys coming in, frothing at the mouth. Let them hate each other. We don't need to keep this up until we retire, do we? We're not fucking wrestlers, which I thought was a hilarious dig. And he's like, it's so late. Like, can you just tell me what you're getting at? And so Shane breaks it down, and he's like, you play for Ottawa, I play for Montreal. We're only 2 hours apart, year round. We start a charity, and it could be something that we both care about. And he says, I also just love Ilya's natural instinct. He's like, I'll come up with a story. Like, I approached you. And Ilya's like, or I approached you. I'm like, he really said, you're not taking all the credit for this plan that you have meticulously planned out on your own. And he's like, fine, sure. We tell the press and everyone that by working on this cause that we both care about, we developed a mutual respect for one another. And Ilya's like, and what? We like sucking each other's dicks? Any questions? He's like, fuck off, Rosenoff. This is a good idea. And he's like, okay, it's not bad. So we start a charity. And he's like, yeah, and it wouldn't be bullshit. It can be something that really means something a lot, to both of us. And he says, and we can still play hard against each other on the ice. And Ilya basically is like, and he's like, shut up.
He didn't get it before that.
No. And he's like, and if people saw us in public or whatever, like it wouldn't be so fucking crazy. And we're only two hours apart. You can apply for citizenship here in Canada. And then maybe one day when we both retire, we could be together for real. And this whole time, Ilya has been like looking up at Shane, and his eyes are like getting glassier and glassier and glassier. And Shane like strokes, he's like stroking Shane's fingers with his own. And then like, this is literally everything that Ilya has ever wanted. Like, this man has spent his entire life feeling unworthy of anything. He was told he was lazy. He was told he was undisciplined. And that, he's always felt like he was never going to truly succeed at anything. And he also has, like, so much fucking love to give. Like, he is always constantly just, like, loving those that he actually loves in his life and taking care of them. And so, like, for someone to choose him for once, and for Shane to, like, be, like, he has not slept. He has been up thinking about this, eating away. And he says, you really think that far ahead? And he says, I do, about this. And he's like, and that's what you want, to be together. And when he says that, Shane is like already shaking his head before he even like gets all of the question out. And he's like, so much it scares me. And as Ilya does, when he starts to cry, he turns his head away and we see the tear like roll down his cheek. And Shane's like, hey, I love that he always, every time Ilya cries and turns away, he always says, hey, hey, and pulls him back. And he kisses him. And Ilya just like instantly climbs him like a fucking tree, just gets on top of him. And he's muttering, I love you in Russian over and over and over again. I'm just going to go ahead and do this bit now. In the monologue, when he says, I'm in love with you and I don't know what to do with myself, the emphasis is on the word love, the way he says it in Russian. He says, I love you. Here, and again, when Shane is going to ask him to repeat it in Russian later, the emphasis is on you. I love you. And so, like, in the monologue, he was finally accepting his feelings of love and accepting and admitting that, yes, he loved Shane. And the shocking part of that to him in that moment was that he fell in love. Yes, with Shane, but he didn't mean to fall in love at all. And now he's accepted that it's Shane he loves, and he's emphasizing the, like, it's you of it all in the way that he says, I love you, in this specific phrase. The Russian language is vast and complicated, and you could say the same thing about 18 different times and it mean slightly different. And so I just thought that was very interesting that they chose to include that day. He could have said it the same way both times, but they included the difference there for the emphasis. And Shane is like obsessed with Ilya, like whispering and kissing all over him. He's like so happy. He's like cheesing. And then Ilya looks him in the eyes and says, I love you. And Shane like freezes. He says, holy shit. And then Ilya starts to backtrack because he said, holy shit, that was your response, which like is so funny and accurate. But like also in that moment, he's like, I went too far. I got too overwhelmed. Now I've been too vulnerable. And you can like see the fear in his eyes when he says, I mean,
he panics. But
Shane cuts him off and he's like, I love you too. And he says, fuck, Hollander, and like falls on him, like collapses. Finally, vulnerability has been met with vulnerability, and he can just be in love with him and be loved in return. And it's like pure relief, this collapse. And Shane is like, I love you so much. And if you have your captions off and it doesn't cover up his little face, you can see Ilya whispers, I love you so much too. As he like is laying down. You can't really hear it, but you can like see his little mouth say it. And Shane like holds him and he throws his fingers through his hair and he's like kissing his forehead. And he says, does it fucking kill you too? And Ilya says, not anymore. And this is the one thing from the book that I'm like, the agony line is so much better. And I wish they would have just kept it, because I hate that change for some reason. It really bothers me.
I agree. I was looking forward to the agony
line
too,
is
but
so
it's still a great scene overall.
Definitely. And it doesn't like diminish my love for the scene, but it is the one line from the book that gets changed that I'm like, I wish you had just kept it. Like, it's not even that different. Why'd you change it? But
I love the way they acted this scene so well, too. Like, I think words can mean nothing if it's not like they don't have as much power if they're not done in such a way as to make it feel so real. So like even just like the little things of the way they are touching while they're having this conversation, or like the way, like as they first Ilya first wakes up, how he's like wiping his lips, you know, or like rubbing at his eyes, like these like early things that you do like when you first wake up, like they're just just making it all so normal, you know. I feel like I love that. And also, a side note, Hudson looks huge in this scene. Like when you see his upper body, the way he's laying in this, you could tell it's at the end and they've been working out, and all of those, whatever 12 pounds he gained of muscle is all on display in this particular scene.
The clappable material discusses in interviews arrived at the cottage.
I just get tingles every time I watch this scene, and I've watched it more times than I'm willing to admit. And it's still just like seeing people be so vulnerable, no matter who they are, but particularly these people be so vulnerable with each other, is just melts me into a puddle.
100%. It was at this point they knew they did not book enough time to make it through this episode. Ash here. We will be back to finish this phenomenal episode in 2 weeks. In the meantime, give us a follow online at WhyAreWeCast, and thank you for coming to the cottage with us. We'll see you soon.